The girl runs away from the monsters and uses magic called physical enchantment to save herself by jumping off a high cliff. She opened her eyes and a black-haired guy was sitting next to her and asking if she was awake. Her body was aching from the fall, which caused a painful groan. The stranger is sure that the girl is afraid of him and she used magic to save him. How did he know? Their pursuers have already caught up with them. With such a quantity of magical power, it can't be a person. The heroine doesn't know if he is her ally, and it will be difficult for her to fight otherwise. The dark-haired man reminded me of an old acquaintance, his habits and words to leave everything to him in any case, very similar to Sir Reinhard. These creatures are a chimera made by an unknown alchemist, and one would like to talk to them. But this is impossible. The magical barrier stopped the attack on our heroes, but it wouldn't have been able to repel all the attacks. The guy doesn't need to spend all his mana thanks to the salamander. Salamander is the great spirit of fire and the crown of the earth. He is the messenger of God who gives people strength, and he is called upon to devour the wicked with his holy flame. The dark-haired one can use healing magic, and his name is Louis Brandel, and the sorceress is Franziska Doomer. The reason for being in the forest is interesting, and he told about his grandfather, who picked him up 10 years ago after losing his memory. After the death of a loved one, he went on a journey. Grandfather was from a species called elves, and they served God. They are also long-lived, and there are many fairies and animals in the forest. The long-haired one turned out to be a noblewoman from the kingdom of Valentine, a student of a magical school for girls and trained in the country next door. They were attacked, and the knights nobly defended. Louis wanted to protect the girl. As a replacement for the knights, she is uneasy and does not want to allow him to ask for more. The dark-haired man dreams of getting into the kingdom and becoming an adventurer there, but the noblewoman is clearly against it, because they will never meet again. Grandpa always said that magic wasn't professional enough yet, but they want to see Louis as a teacher at the Magical Academy for Girls in Valentine. Now the sorceress is worried that she was a little pushy and rude last time. After the meal, the heroes go to the scene of the attack. Louis uses flight magic and they take off, clinging to each other. The girl felt his frantic heartbeat. The wizard sees a human girl for the first time and finds her cute with a pleasant smell. An awkward pause hangs over, and it is urgently necessary to change the conversation to the age of the grandfather. He is the eldest of the ARLVS. The man was 7,000 years old and lived in the era of the gods, and he told his grandson that he ruled over all the Arlvas. When the heroes found themselves at the battle site, they saw a lot of dead bodies. The enemies left no trace of mercy on the many damaged corpses, and Louis thought about collecting items. Then the wizard wanted to resurrect the corpses and used magic on them. He ordered the entity to grant the power to return the bodies. With the help of a bracelet that is enchanted with the magic of the vault and can hold many things, Louis is going to collect the remains of the dead. Our heroes flew to the city, and the girl does not want to enter the city in this way. They must land not far away. The noblewoman apologized for yesterday. The girl understands that Louis wants to live freely, but she wants to go with him and asks him to listen to them. The heroes approached the northern gate and were met by guards. Franziska asked them not to be rude to the guy, because he was her savior. This country is strict about foreigners entering. In any case, they go to the noblewoman's mansion. The guy is needed to explain himself to her mother. The butler of the Doomer house is called Zimon. He met the main characters and was not happy with the wizard. They told him to let only the girl through. She immediately began to defend her companion because he is her savior and also a witness. The butler cannot let such a poor man pass and advises to give him money and drive him away. The guy says that the man sees him for the first time and may think about his low social status, but he does not understand why Fran's words cannot be believed. Zeman asks in irritation what aura they are talking about. The guy understands the concern for the girl, but in case of danger, everyone will be at risk. The man starts a fight in a rage, and the wizard easily dodges the blows. The butler demands that the guy fight if he is a man. The wizard won, and he understands the reason for the fight. The butler did it for Fran. The guy could easily kill the man. Zeman admitted that he was rude to the girl's guest and fainted. The wizard calms Fran and wants to cure his subordinate. Fran's mother appeared. She is the head of the Magical Academy for Girls, and her name is Earl Adelaide Doomer, demanding an explanation of what happened. Out of interest, the woman came close to the guy and began to examine him. He did not give off any threatening force. The girl asked him to leave Louis alone. The wizard radiates enormous power, and there is no end in sight. The woman looks further and notices his beautiful eyes, and the guy must definitely cure the servant. There are not many people who use spiritual magic. Even the best Arlvas cannot use it perfectly. The man woke up and was surprised by the lack of pain. Adelaide asked how his injury was, and then wanted to know all the details about Louis. Zeman's report was incomplete. The woman understands it, but it is just a waste of time, and she would like to spend more time studying. The wizard asks Fran if he can get the dead bodies right there. They are in the bracelet, and the girl became scared even if they are dead. Suddenly, Fran started to rave and scream in fear. Louis asks her to calm down and says that they are here. The girl asks if Louis is here and asks in tears not to leave her alone. He agreed not to leave her and used magic. The woman apologized to the guy, but he admitted that he was wrong, that he had been too careless. The bodies resemble goblins. The wizard thinks they are based on homunculi and mixed with the spirits of dead people and goblins. Adelaide thinks her daughter was involved because of her and thanks Louis for saving her child. She would be very grateful to hear about their circumstances, about spiritual magic and other things. Louis told about his plans to become an adventurer here in Valentine. He wanted to see the fullness of this endless world, but Fran asked to become a teacher at the academy. Louis is truly worried about Fran. His mother thanks him for this. His talent in magic is something incredible. Adelaide's real intention is to keep the boy here to help with many things and experiments in magic, but he doubts his teaching abilities. Just as the grandfather taught the boy the knowledge of the great interpretation, he can also teach the students this. The boy could discover something new. Adelaide doesn't ask for an immediate answer, and he can think about it, but the guy immediately decided that he wanted to try. The girl was called by a stranger. She recognized him as Rain. He asked her not to worry and promised to return. Adelaide introduces the daily routine at the academy. They only have one male teacher, and the rest of the teachers are female. The wizard took books about magic formulas for study. He wants to look at them and then activate them once. Most likely it is possible to use the rest without casting spells. In this country, every nobleman has a good match and marries as early as possible. Fran's fiancée 12 years ago was Countess Sarah's second son, 8 years her senior. The fateful day came when a great destruction occurred, and it was a disaster that came into this world out of nowhere. 10 years ago, a great destruction began in St. Helena. Hordes of ferocious wyverns attacked the capital of the kingdom. Then he was a knight of the royal guard and received an order to go to war. The wyverns were repelled, thanks in no small part to the royal guard. But he was in the thick of the battle, protecting his comrades, when a wyvern tore him to pieces. Then Fran cried every day. Her cheerful and happy nature changed. She began to be interested only in studying magic. Adelaide is a mother and is very worried about her future, but then Louis appeared and saved her. The guy claims it was an accident, and the woman denies it. The girl woke up and did not understand why she was unconscious. They looked together at the mutilated body. Fran ran out to look for Lo. I walked into the room and saw Louis in the suit he had borrowed. Fran looked better. The sorceress learned that the guy will become a teacher at a girls' academy. Adelaide is going to give a tour of the school, and it's spring break now. The main characters found themselves in a school of magic for girls. The building was very large and full of amazing magic. The main building had 5 floors, and on the second and third there were classrooms. On the 4th floor there is the principal's office, the deputy principal's office, and a conference room. Louis will have his own place in the teacher's room. The new teacher is interested in the dark-haired guy. They will be new teachers from this year. The girl's name is Adelina Colette. The teacher is unhappy with the boy's bad manners. She should greet him properly anyway. She needs to leave a good first impression. The girl became nervous and stumbled, which made her feel very ashamed. The dark-haired man noticed good human qualities in her. Fran had a strange feeling the moment Colette greeted Law. He was so friendly with everyone. The guy noted that Fran had such a funny face and that she was scaring Adelina, so she apologized to the girl. On the 5th floor, the mother and daughter asked the guy to wait and leave them alone to talk. Fran has a request that was denied. You can't keep Louis just because they are comfortable there, and if he decides to leave, they will let him go quietly. The girl lost Reinhardt and is trying to simply fill the void with the help of Law. The guy does not understand how outstanding a wizard he is. Saul raised him to be very modest. The girl was hooked by words similar to Reinhardt's, but she was assured that he did not love her. If she wants to love Lo and for him to love her, she needs to communicate more with him and strive to make more efforts to get to know him and herself better. If he refuses her, then she will have to accept it, because in any case, Lo has an incredible talent for magic, and it will be useful to compete with him in a friendly format. The mother thinks that her daughter is too naive, and this evening the captain of the royal guard will come to them, and he wants to ask about the attack on Fran. They will ask about Louis. You shouldn't reveal all your abilities, but St. Helena carefully checks strangers. The guy agrees to say that he is Fran's servant, whether there are 10,000 of them or one guy will protect her. Deputy Director Ilsvara, a teacher from the ARLV race, arrived. Fran went to open the doors. She found out that the director was also here. The guy recognized her. He realized that it was Kelly and they hadn't seen each other for a long time. She also recognized him, and this situation surprised the mother and daughter. Adelaide asked again if they knew each other, and it turned out that his grandfather had introduced them. Formerly known as the educated girl from the Valentine Magic School for Girls, she became the vice principal in 2 years, thanks to her amazing genius. The dark-haired man claims that they trained together, but the girl denies it. The vice principal is so calm and unwavering, she has never seen such an expression on her face. It seems like Luo is also having fun. Kelly suddenly disappeared 5 years ago, and the guy asks what happened then. The woman says that she knows about the circumstances, and that's good. Given the circumstances, it's possible to make Luo Fran's follower. Since she's the vice principal, she can introduce him to Fran. The woman asked if this was really such an impossible task for Kelturi Eiltsvar, and the dark-haired man thanked Kelly. An officer of the Royal Knights of the Kingdom of Valentine, Count Kelvin Ryan, appeared. He was greeted. He thanked Adelaide for the meeting. They will remember the 5 knights who died defending Fran. Ryan was told the news about the girl's protector. He said that these knights lived and protected everything dear to their hearts. They will be able to rest in peace. The knight looked at the guy and he looked very elegant and tall, but it didn't look like he knew how to use a weapon properly. The boy greeted Count Ryan and the gentleman knights, dropped to one knee, and became Francesca's follower. Lo was an orphan from the human race, but he grew up in the ARLV village. Kelturi speaks very highly of him, and he was appointed as a temporary teacher at the academy. The knight asked the guy to come closer. The girls got scared and asked him to stop. Would it really be like with Simon? The dark-haired man has good, trained hands. Even though he is thin, the knight wants to see him fight with his subordinates. It's time for Ryan to go. He's collecting the remains and evidence. Lo has dispelled Fran's darkness. Throughout his life, the knight had met so many people, but only in his eyes the man did not see malice. He even mourned Ryan's comrades. The main characters will go to the trading house and refuse the carriage. Because the weather is great today, the butler entrusted the dark-haired Fran. We went out as a widow. And the city is so fascinating, Louis said, that there are so many people here, and the city is so lively. Louis first thought about where to find housing, but was glad that Adelaide allowed him to live with them. The strangers were discussing clothes, that they would prefer simple and were not thinking of taking formal ones. An unknown person approached Fran and remarked on her attractiveness. A guy from the street started pestering the girl and asked her to leave this guy and have fun in their company. Louis immediately stood in front of her and wanted to protect her. The passerby didn't like this, and he became rude. Louis said again, "Get out." The guy squeezed the attacker's fist in his hand so hard that he screamed in pain. Louis, after repelling the enemy's attack, twisted his arms behind his back. They want to talk to the hooligan alone, and they ordered him to tell his henchmen not to move. He obeyed and did as he was told. Louis was interested in the name and age of the stranger. His name is Barubi Uzaru, and he is 17. He is quite young. He started to be rude and called his father's name. He is a second-year student at the all-boys Royal Academy, and sometimes he wants to have fun with the girls, often in a very rough way. Louis entered Barubi's mind with magic. He abused girls and sold them into slavery, and his father hid the atrocities. Louis may only be Fran's follower, but he threatened the boy if he ever came near her again. The guy continued that he and his henchmen, like the bully's father, would disappear, and after his words, he clenched his fist tighter in his hand. And in his heart, there are very interesting images. The dark-haired one will do the same if Barubi blabs, and he must remember this. Louis let go of his hand, and his opponent sat on the ground. But suddenly, guards appeared and shouted for the fighting to stop. Fran asked how the dark-haired one was. He was okay, and it was more important that the girl was safe. Nearby, too, were discussing the Iron Mask. The guys are interested in where our heroes are going and want to arrange a good prank. They will put an end to their plans and make a little joke about the Iron Mask. Louis noticed the surveillance and doubted that they wanted to harm them, so he did not touch the pursuers. The heroes entered the capital branch of the Kingsley Company. They were met by the owner. Today, they will be shopping for Fran's follower. From this spring, the guy will be a teacher at a magical academy for girls. He would like to take fashionable clothes. He is uncomfortable in such clothes. Fran doesn't understand what the guy said to the owner, after which he took his leave, and a small surprise will await the girl. At the entrance, the staff met the 2 girls Fran had mentioned, and while she was shopping, the guests retreated to tea in the next room. A dragon skin costs 3 divine gold or 30,000 gold coins, enough to buy 2 estates. Luo definitely can't afford that. The guy says he has something similar and rolls up his sleeve. Where did this skin come from? It emits a much more powerful energy than Marco's material. Louis was given it by his grandfather. They say that the true Dragon King was the strongest in all the history of the elves, and Sol defeated him. They did not get along with the Avorfs and made up the story. The guy wants a dragon skin product. Under normal circumstances, the craftsman would rather die than do it, and he only took it on because of the value of the work. Fran began to notice the guy's qualities. He is very careful and strong, calm and good-natured. There were 2 girls sitting in the reception area of the Kingsleys, and both were second-year students from the Magical Academy for Girls. One was named Michelle Estra, and the other was named Olga Flavini. Iron Mask is Fran's nickname. She met them. They feel uneasy from the smile on her face and consider it fake. The dark-haired man came in and introduced himself. They reported on the pursuit. They just got carried away. Fran would prefer that her students did not have such interest. Next time, she would not be so generous. The girls haven't had lunch, and the heroes ask to join them. If there are more people, then that would be even better. The students doubt and ask if they are really ready to treat them to such an elegant dinner. This can be considered a lesson for the lady. Now the girls admit that they were wrong about the teacher. They misunderstood her. Fran knocked and asked permission to enter Louis' room. He allowed it. The girl would like to adjust her schedule with him for this semester. The dark-haired man took the textbooks. Yesterday he read them all and remembered them in one night. Fran was very surprised by this. Today the girl had a lot of fun. For the first time she communicated normally with her students. She was pleased with their request to her. The guy is sure of Fran's great untapped potential. She doesn't understand how he understood it. It can be seen in her aura. The girl was happy with what was said and hugged him with gratitude. He was perplexed by her reaction. While Fran was sleeping, the dark-haired man got up and used spiritual transformation magic. Lo took off and asked Sylphie if she would go with him. They were on the outskirts of the capital. The man sat at the table and learned that after the threat to Razel Barubi, several people were fired. Then out of fear, the hooligans surrendered to the guards. And the one they were discussing was a nice girl, and they want to give her into slavery for a huge amount of money. It seems they are even more disgusting than Razel, and the man does not believe in penetrating them. A bottle was thrown at the guy, and it flew right through him. The bandits were ordered not to be afraid and to kill him. He sees images of desecrated and dead girls in their memories. They are real scum, and they don't bring any benefit. They only cause problems. Such words are very loud for a young guy. The dark-haired man used magic, and Vivi helped him. He cast a spell. Everyone did not understand what was happening. The guy approached the bandit. Everyone around was screaming in pain. The man asked not to come closer. They called Louis a monster, but the real monsters are those bandits. The guy won't allow Fran to be sold to other women. After the snap of the fingers, something inexplicable happened. This is the end for them. The guy told me to give in and go to the very depths of hell. The wizard asks Vivi to take the bodies and bury them in the depths of the underworld and remove the bloodstains too, and she did so. There was a lot of blood and corpses around, which disappeared. The guy praised his subordinate and patted her on the head. The other assistants have done a good job too. Now we need to be back by dawn. For Adelaide, Louis, as expected, exceeds all expectations and asks to choose a subject to teach. The guy doesn't care, and the subjects that can be taught include offensive magic and high-level summoning magic. Louis can use any magic, but when it comes to predictions, this is the image that came to mind. The girls laughed. Fran was told not to laugh so loudly while eating. They were very impressed by the abilities of our wizard and universalist. Luo still has to hide his true strength. If his strength is revealed, the royal family will inevitably take him as a hero. The spirits think the guy is very talented, and he can surpass anyone. He doesn't like this idea. He would be worried about the decision without him. Now let's talk about high-level summoning magic. The guy can show several summons at Adelaide's request. This will happen after the meal. They want to summon creatures that are dogs, cats, or birds, and they were considered to be the souls of small animals from the material world. The guy wasn't going to summon a Cerberus or a Griffin. After summoning them, the capital would be horrified. He was asked to show his abilities, and he could do it. Louis was going to summon a creature that is hated in this world. He will be summoned only after the approval of the girls. The call began for a being called the Morning Star and Leader of the Apostles, who lives in the depths of the underworld and can perform divine miracles. Moraru, Law's servant, appears. She can travel between this world and the underworld. The subordinate was introduced to everyone. She said that Lo's friends were her friends. Suddenly, she looked at them and said that they seemed to be very tasty sources of magical energy. It was necessary to stop, and she could not touch them. One of the lines in the spell was forbidden. The dark-haired one can summon such a terrifying magical creature. Who is he? Her name is Moraru. She is a vampire and a bit of a succubus. She gets magical energy from blood. This concerns those turned by them, summoned no matter how much she wanted to feast. She differs from ordinary vampires by a part of the succubus. Moraru shows how she can absorb energy. She pressed herself against Law and began to touch his body. The most delicious form of magical energy is the energy in the heart. She always pins her hand to Lo's chest, closer to the heart, and enjoys it. Moraru should think about her behavior. He already said that these are his friends. Her kind does not attack people for their magical energy, like lesser vampires do. They can live like normal people day and night. Fran greets the summoned one. She trusts the guy, and if Louis trusts, then the girl does too. If Lo takes responsibility, then Adelaide doesn't mind. The girl apologized for her first reaction. Moraru's parents are human, and human parents can sometimes have a succubus child, although the likelihood of this happening is extremely low. The guy bowed his head and thanked her for accepting the summoned one. Lo couldn't leave her anyway, and Fran liked this kind side of him. Spring and class time began. A new teacher joined them who would teach classes throughout the year, and he introduced himself to the class. Fran talks about his rescue and the guy's placement in this position, asks to greet Lo Brandel. Everyone starts introducing themselves in response. The student greeted Brandel. Her name is Diana Brure. She hopes for mutual understanding. The guy accidentally fell and asked for forgiveness for it. The student thought it was sweet on his part. An awkward situation arose, and the girl was in shock. What was he thinking? And it was impossible to believe. The dark-haired man accidentally bumped into the chest of an unfamiliar girl. They head to Class B of the second year. The guy is always prepared. It will be the first lecture with Fran, and he hopes for luck. The main characters went to class and wished her good morning. It seems that today no one will pay attention to her. The girl hopes that Lo will get ready for the first lecture. He wishes her good morning and announces the start of spring practice. Discussions about a new teacher began immediately. The guy will be an assistant and introduces himself to the class. He hopes for good relations. To increase magical power and smooth release of energy, you need to relax and concentrate. Breathing practice is used. It is necessary when studying magic. The dark-haired man noticed a breach of discipline. They communicate so openly and did not even open the section on breathing techniques. Only a few take Fran's lecture seriously. The guy approached one of the offenders and made a remark. They are studying breathing techniques, not techniques for enhancing perception. The girls continued to chat. They were disturbing the others, and it would be better for them to leave the class if they were not interested. The student looked at the teacher and did not react to the remark. Then the wizard waved his hand. He used magic on the student, and she lost her voice. The girl can't believe it. The assistant asked her to give her name, and her name is Lady Josephine. The dark-haired man suggests stopping his meaningless chatter and starting to study breathing techniques with the others, and the student starts to get violent out of anger. He stopped the girl's blow. She didn't need to be stupid. He cast a magic called Weakening. The girl woke up, and her classmates breathed a sigh of relief. She finally woke up. The student asked where she was. Everyone decided to hold the lesson outdoors, because the weather was good, and Lo carried the girl outside. The boy apologized for using magic on her, but Francesca tries her best to give the lecture and asks him to take his studies more seriously. The student wants the boy to kneel down and ask for forgiveness. This is punishment for his alleged arrogance towards her. She claims that he is a commoner, and they must do whatever the nobles say. She feels it is unfair to use magic on her. They have little time, and the guy invites them to go. The student wants to see Law as a gentleman and asks to take him there. Josephine became more obedient. They came to Fran and asked permission to join the lesson. She was given consent. The dark-haired man says that for better understanding, it is worth not delving into books, but trying to relax and concentrate. The boys were told to lie down on the grass, and the student doubted that this was training. She was wasting her time at the academy. The girl's face was touched, and she didn't understand who it was, but it was so nice. While the class was relaxing, the offender fell asleep on the grass, and Fran wants to wake her up, because the lecture is ending, and the guy asks to wait a little longer. He will bring her later, so we can take the rest back. The guys share their successes in the lesson. The students are so lively. Fran has never had such a rich lecture. Getting him as a teacher was the right decision. A dark-haired guy entered the deputy director's office. He was suddenly called, and the guy asked what happened. They haven't seen each other for a long time, and they ask him to sit down, offer him some tea. Kelly knows about the first successful lecture. She also heard rumors that Sylvester had recently died, and it turned out that this was the reason he left Sato. Liu became his grandfather's successor. The guy is sure that she will be an excellent Sowell, and Louis was appointed as Sylvester's successor. In childhood, they said that the boy lost his memory and wandered in the forest. He was considered a strange child. They were supposed to train the man Sylvester had suddenly brought in, and he was supposed to be the next soul. The elves were known for their disdain for outsiders, and they constantly mocked him, but he never paid any attention to them. They shouted after him that it was that boy, and that a person would never receive the protection of spirits in his life. There had been a prophecy that day, that this child will gain the protection of all spirits and an incredible magician will be born. The man began to show more interest in Lo. He became a generalist. Many stopped training because of the boy's power. A civil strife began. Many were against the man taking the next post. The guy himself didn't want this conflict. The girl hit the guy on the forehead with her finger and called him a fool. He is not guilty of anything, and there is really no greed in him. Kelly asked him why he became a follower of this crazy princess. It happened by accident. The guy thanked her for the amazing tea and left. She began to worry that he wanted to protect Fran. The long-haired girl asked if he had been to the deputy director. She called him, and he was glad that they were able to talk slowly. Michelle and Olga met in the desert. Are they going to the arena, and why now? This is strange, because it is too early for club activities and the girls seem very upset. Fran is worried about them and wants to keep an eye on them. They saw the teacher and asked what she needed. She asked in response what they were going to do there. The girl thinks that Fran doesn't care about her class because she ignored her students. They had been acting strange since the morning, and when the girl asked about what had happened, they admitted that they had been watching out of curiosity the other day, and that such behavior was unacceptable. Suddenly, a dark-haired man appeared. The girl got scared and asked who it was, and when he crept up, Lo introduced himself. She doesn't believe that such a fool could sneak up unnoticed. The wizard knows about the intention to find out about the others. The girl will not calm down until she makes him apologize on his knees. Giselle insulted Francesca, and the guy cannot turn a blind eye to it. He introduced himself as a representative of Lady Francesca and agreed to fight. The girl was surprised and wanted to stop the fight. Giselle and Law were serious. Why not use the forest where you have to hunt monsters and determine who destroyed more and higher level ones? The hunting forest is located on the outskirts of the capital, where the boys and girls from the night school practice magic, fight, and train at the same time. The students approached Fran and asked for forgiveness. The girl admitted that she had not paid enough attention to them, and the guy asked her to just rely on him. They are looking for a girl named Nadia, and she has a request that needs to be heard urgently. She is not happy with the lack of manners. Nadia Sharlova is a student at the Magical Academy for Girls and the vice president of the student council. In response to discontent came another discontent, but you need to calm down and just tell the situation. Nadia needs help in the hunting forest. You can only count on her. Giselle will be grateful for the help. They thank her. She is a true friend, and Giselle has nothing to worry about because they will always be with her everywhere. The day of the duel has arrived. The girl wants to forbid the presence of spectators. Because it is a private duel, she must assert her superiority, and if they win this duel, the influence of the Dumel family will weaken, and the families of Kalpanti and Nadia Sharlova will become more powerful. Kelly said that the guy had just started at the academy, and he was already causing a lot of problems. There will be an observer in the form of Giselle's teacher and Nadia in Class A of the 3rd year. The girl apologized for the wait when she arrived at the battlefield. Nadia started talking to the guy in a cheeky tone, which she didn't like, and it was inappropriate. She called him a commoner and told him to think about addressing her. The head of the hunting forest is called Aibel, and he will explain the rules, the opponents defeat the monster, and everything is recorded on the bracelet. The team with the highest total points wins. 2 teams have gathered, Giselle and Nadia against Fran and Louis. The battle has begun, and they are moving forward. The night before the competition, the noblewoman tried on the robe and took it off in front of the dark-haired man. He thinks that it really lacks protective effects. The guy is so interested in her robe, he asks permission to cast a simple little boosting spell. Wants to increase her stats. The girl is worried that she sat in front of Lo without a robe and she felt so awkward, but the guy's kindness emanates from the clothes and it's so nice. Louis detected the enemies with magic and learned that Giselle's team was now in ancient ruins filled with orcs. Orcs are monsters who constantly thirst for destruction, acting instinctively. The guy saw a big monster and will kill it. He can't lure others while the main one is alive. Our heroes are attacked by monsters, and the guy tells Fran to use magic. She asked to grant the apostle her sacred flame. This magic worked. One more attack should be enough, and the projectile is sent. The girl was praised, but only one remained, and the dark-haired one dealt with him. Next time, she will put in more effort. The surprising fact was that Louis would become the next soul. The girl didn't know about it. The history of the elves begins with the age of the gods. They say that God created the universe and created apostles, spirits, and endowed them with wisdom along with strength. It's hard to believe that they are connected to the apostles and spirits, but Kelly's older sister can also handle the job of a soul. Ogres, like orcs, love to devour human flesh, are ruthless and extremely dangerous, and possess enormous strength. We dealt with all the monsters, and it's amazing. Hunting goblins and orcs is just a trifle for a girl. Ogres give the most points. The girls follow the plan to simply kill all the enemies, and one plays the role of a shield, and the second destroys them with magic. Being in the vanguard turned out to be easy. Nadia felt humiliated. She wanted to become the #1 in the Magic Academy. Giselle was better socially and academically too. She doesn't care if the girl falls. Nadia will happily become the next student council president. Giselle has defeated more than enough of these orcs in battle. The girls' victory was assured. They asked the chairman if they realized their strength, and this was very interesting. Giselle used to act more mature and often got angry, but now she acts as if Nadia is her mother and completely relies on her. Nadia fell to the ground, no signs of magic being used on her, and no monsters nearby. What happened? A voice came out of nowhere and said that he saw her and her real name. There were bursts of magical energy. The ogres noticed them and began to approach. The guy will go alone. He has a bad feeling and needs to end this quickly. The wizard turns to the monsters. He is their enemy. The king of ogres appeared before the guy, a high-level ogre, and he is much larger than ordinary ogres, possessing unrivaled strength. The dark-haired man advises that if the monster relies only on strength, then it has no chance. Louis has little time. He will try to kill them quickly and painlessly. In a few seconds, he used multiple types of magic and combined spiritual magic. It was incredible. Fran is worried if he is okay. Vivi is an earth spirit. They have little time, and he uses Vivi's power and magic alternately to pass through the spirit world and get to Adelaide and the others faster. The guy sets off on a journey and takes Fran with him, telling her to hold on tight. Kelly asks to take them with him. Vivi is given the order. She uses magic, and the wizards evaporate. The spirit world is so beautiful. If it weren't for this situation, the girl would have been enchanted by the view, and the guy would have let Vivi go. A terrible and heavy magical wave washed over them. Everyone clearly felt it. A girl appeared in front of the heroes. Nadia appeared before our heroes, says this body became a vessel. It turned out to be a demon. The kid has a very interesting magical energy, but at the same time, he is a human. The demon wants to take his body. This is the lord of the underworld, the demon Vine, and now his true name is revealed. They will become his servants. The demon knocked the girls to the ground. The dark-haired one is angry. The entity has the power to read people. The name is just a symbol for humans, and succubi, everyone has true names that the creator gave them, and they are the soul. The demon wanted to read the wizard's name, but it didn't work, and the guy grinned. Wasn't he going to show off the special secret technique that allows one to reveal true names, that nasty ability? The guy used containment magic. He doesn't like that the girl's being used as a vessel and asks to leave the body. The demons had to lead the people and be ready to fall from heaven for the sake of this struggle. Where did this noble desire go? Where does this voice come from? And this is impossible. The guy threatened that where were those girls who were with her? Under unpleasant circumstances, he would have to tear the demon's soul to shreds. The demon escaped into the ancient ruins. He was too scared, and thanks to the guy, they returned Nadia's body, for which they are very grateful. It will take some time to heal the girls, so he will start with Fran and Kelly. The wizard asks Lucifer to help. Fran found herself in an unknown place and called the guy. He replied that there was no need to worry and that she should trust him. He is going to change his true name, but it is against the laws of this world. Will she have enough determination to face the taboo? Fran woke up to see Morara, her master, concentrating on healing another girl. Finally, Kelly woke up and jumped on her savior. Both girls almost died. This is a normal reaction. The girls are left on Morara. She will protect them, even at the cost of her own life. Fran wanted to go save her mother. In the ancient ruins, he must be imprisoned in the depths of the spirit world. The demon does not believe it. The guy challenges him to a fight. The opponent tells the guy to know his place. He looks like a lion head. This time it will end differently. An attack occurred, which the wizard deftly dodged. The enemy will not retreat. Wind and water magic went on the attack, and their combination might be next. Leo speaks of someone who will be the only noble creature for him. Only he will be recognized as their master. He won't let such a little man imitate him. The guy turned into something unknown. The lion-headed magic didn't work. How could this happen? The wizard has wings, 12 wings, to be exact. Is this Lord Lucifer? The enemy is perplexed. This is impossible. 12 wings. The boy has perfect wings, a symbol of absolute protection, and none of the other apostles were able to control them. The enemy recognized the beauty. Archangel Lucifer was the most faithful apostle of the Creator, and the leader of the other apostles. He had many similar titles. One day, when the venerable Lucifer was reporting to the Lord, he did not accept his report and punished the apostle. The venerable Lucifer could not accept such an unjustified punishment, so he decided to fight him, leading the same apostles. Lucifer rebelled, and the Creator's anger was very strong. He gave the only order to the new archangel. The strong and immortal body, the pure soul of the venerable Lucifer, were imprisoned in the depths of the caucasus of Judecus. He was far from arrogance and led weak people. Suddenly, Lucifer was reincarnated and became the ruler among men. They served under him again, and happiness was restored. Louis Sarian's body was just a human body. Eventually he died during his ambitions, and the 72 pillars split up and went their separate ways. The enemy woke up in confusion. Louis replied that he had sent him to an alternate space. Now they can fight as much as they want. The guy can also surround the body and soul, erase existence. A high-pressure wall appeared. It is useless against the wizard. There is such a powerful aura around. The atmosphere freezes the wall. The guy uses magic. The enemy is still alive. And surprised by this, it is only because he did not raise his hand against the hostage. A single apostle is used. Everything is locked in the Judeca. They talk through telepathic magic, and in fact, Lou's soul helps. Why shouldn't Vinit work under his wing? The lion turns away from such words, and what is he saying? The guy can restore the true will that was once broken. From this moment on, he can walk next to Lucifer again. The guy asks Lucifer his opinion about this, and he is given an indifferent answer. Now they, Widowed and Vinit, are going to serve for eternity. Giselle refuses the dark-haired man's help. She doesn't trust him enough, unlike the other girls. The student is worth risking her life. The guy thought that Del was the best teacher in the world, and not only him. The wizard will take the form of a spirit and enter the spirit world of Giselle. She and Cerberus will need to be looked after while the guy is busy. Louis wants Cerberus to protect the girl. She really liked the monster and wants to take a closer look at the wonderful animal. Usually people are afraid of it. Later, Cerberus took the form of a dog. Vinit is the reason why Giselle's world looks dull. A person's spiritual world reflects his state of mind. The girl's thoughts spread, and the wizard understood them. For example, that becoming a diligent wife is such a stereotypical life for a nobleman's daughter. Giselle's heart is wavering about her future, and then Nadia, who was fascinated by Vinit, took advantage of their friendship and made Nadia become a bad influence on Giselle. The girl saw Louis, but she doesn't want to leave this place, no matter how much they try to persuade her. The guy asks what she's talking about. The girl wanted to know more about Mrs. Cindy, the wife of Count Calvin Lyon, and she was a former magical swordsman. The bitter truth was hidden in her heart. She didn't want others to know about it, and they had to get out of here. They could die if they stayed here for a long time. The guy feels that he is responsible for the pursuit all the way here, and therefore if they do not escape, there will be a sad outcome. The teacher won't mind dying with her, but if she believes him, he promises not to let her die. The girl agreed to go with the teacher. They need to hurry and save Nadia. Giselle has difficulty getting up. She tried to get up, but she had no strength, and she also refused the guy's help. He finally took her in his arms. She was embarrassed because she was being held like a princess. Giselle is being held in the arms of an enemy. She hates this man, but still, it is very embarrassing. The girl asks Nadia for forgiveness for being so useless. If only she had paid more attention. She should calm down and rely on Lo. He saved everyone else. Perhaps Nadia received the most serious injuries. This man has such a huge magical power. All the skin trembles. The girls have a sense of danger. It is actually so dangerous it penetrates into souls and does not know the way out. We only read about it in books. The guy got into her spiritual world. The remains of the soul over which Vinit sowed chaos are visible, and Lucifer shows the way to Louis. The wizard was looking for Nadia, didn't know where to go. Then they gave him directions and finally found her. Can Louis save the girl using the aura transfer method? She hates being second always, doesn't she? Does she want to take the power? While practicing summoning magic, the girl accidentally opened the gates to a sinister underworld, and the insidious demon offered a deal. After that, her heart was defiled, and she no longer understood anything. She felt only cold, darkness, and pain. The girl woke up and saw Louis in front of her. He was holding her in his arms. Now they were both heading home. Nadia opened her eyes and saw Giselle. Thank God. Nadia apologized to Giselle for her behavior. It was as if she had suddenly been cursed by a demon or something. She is glad that Nadia is alive and hugged her tightly. Girls are the same and easily give in to desires. They seem to be doing better now, and Fran is happy for them, but it's strange that no one is talking about Lucifer. It would be a terrible disaster if anyone other than Lo, with whom she had made a contract, remembered her voice and mentioned her. To ensure that no disaster befalls them, he asked everyone to cooperate with Lo. The girl has problems with Lo's desire for love. His personality is heavily influenced. Lucifer finds people in need and gives them love. However, the girl was able to recognize the connection between Lo and Lucifer. He is confident in her determination. The girl did not understand who she was talking to and stood there in bewilderment. Giselle, Nadia, Fran, and Lo stood tensely in front of the judge. The judge was giving his verdict. First, he gave the points to Giselle's group, giving them 200 points. Then he gave the points to Francisca's group, giving them 300 points. He asked the observers if any of the groups had committed any unfair acts, to which the observers responded that today's competition was absolutely fair. The judge was pleased to hear this answer and continued that, in the end, Francesca's group won. Francesca and Lo's carriage drove up, and suddenly Giselle called out to the guy, and with an embarrassed and displeased look she came closer to him. Giselle didn't know how to find the words and started mumbling something, and before she could say a word, Nadia jumped up to Lo, pushing Giselle away, and in a loud voice began to thank him, and said that as punishment, she and Giselle would go on a date with him. The guy was very surprised and embarrassed, and the girl, bowing to him, said that in fact she would like to go alone, and asked him to accept the offer. She picked up Giselle and rushed off to her carriage. Fran and Lo stood motionless and impressed by the scene that had just happened. Then Fran spoke up, asking what he would do since these girls had their eye on him. Then the young man replied that he was happy only with her. The girl was very happy with these words, giggling embarrassedly, and asked him to still be nice to these girls. The next morning, Fran had just woken up, all disheveled and still sleepy. Lo was holding her hand. Fran's mother, Adelaide, looking indignantly at her daughter, asked what was wrong with her appearance, and at the same time apologized to the guy for asking him to wake up the girl. Since the maid had a day off, the guy laughed embarrassedly, saying that everything was fine. The girl and the guy went into the bathroom. The guy tried to wash her face, and the girl's mother, thoughtfully and with disappointment, that did Lo really not feel anything for her daughter after seeing her like that, because he is a guy. Arriving at the academy and entering the office, the guy saw Adelina, who had arrived very early. They greeted each other, and Adelina asked the young man about his spring training and how it went in general. Lo replied that it seemed like all the students were having fun and everything went pretty well. Then Adelina, looking dejected, sighed and said how hopeless she was. The guy didn't understand what happened and why the girl was acting so strangely. Then he asked if everything was okay with her. Suddenly, bitter tears streamed down Adelina's face and she began to cry, saying that her spring training had not gone as well as his. She said that she had been very nervous and could not concentrate. Because of this, her students had called her unreliable. The girl covered her face with her hands and continued to cry. Then the guy asked her, because she is a teacher's assistant, and what did the teacher with whom she was paired tell her? She answered that the teacher with whom she was paired told her that since she is a teacher, she should think about her actions. Then the guy told her that there was a point in those words, because she should try to think about what went wrong. Adelina looked at him sobbing and said that when she stood on the podium, her head became clouded and she could think clearly. She really wanted everything to go well, but she could not think properly. Law patted Adelina on the shoulder and told her to chin up and that she would do better next time. He gave her a sweet, wide smile and told her that they were new teachers and that they wouldn't be able to get everything right the first time. The girl stared at him with tears in her eyes, not knowing what to say, and the guy, meanwhile, continued to advise that she should definitely apologize when she makes a mistake. But above all else, she should be brave and calm, and not let it drag her down. Now the girl, with great enthusiasm, said that she would try and thank Lo with all her heart. The morning went on as usual. Franziska and Lo entered the classroom and greeted the students. Two second-year girls with shining eyes ran up to their teacher Lo and congratulated him on yesterday's victory over the seniors Giselle and Nadia. Moreover, Giselle apologized to the girls for being harsh. A third second-year girl intervened in the conversation. Josephine said with a grin that it was no wonder, because she had her eyes on Mr. Luo, and he would never give in to a mere student. The conversation was interrupted by teacher Fran. Clapping her hands, she called for everyone to calm down, saying that the lecture was beginning. Franziska asked the students to open this section on the teaching of magic, and that today they would look at how to improve concentration and imagination. The teacher continued to explain that a caster must focus on their mind, and also need imagination to think about the act of doing magic. And as a first step to improving these two skills, it is recommended to choose something you like, and then carefully imagine and analyze it. Finally, Franziska asked the students to think about their favorite things. The same wayward student glared at teacher Luo and pointed her index finger at him, asking him to stay close, as she wanted to think about him throughout the entire process, and all her classmates immediately began to whisper, from such a brazen offer, one might say. The young man smiled calmly and said that it was an honor for him to be chosen by her, but he would have to refuse her, since he was the teacher of all the students. Josephine perked up and jumped up in indignation, shouting that she was a noble woman. Then the teacher said that no matter how noble she was, he could not treat her in a special way. Smiling sweetly, he said that he promised to look after her. All the students continued to do the task, and Josephine sat there sulking and wondering how this commoner could reject her offer. Josephine continued to sit, lost in her thoughts, wondering why Luo obeyed Franziska and not her, and what he thought of her in general. Suddenly, she heard Master Luo's voice speaking to her, and she was suddenly distracted from her thoughts and stared at him in fear. He smiled at her and told her that he was happy for her. She asked him what he was happy about. Then he replied that during the breathing exercises last week, she had gained the divine protection of the sylph, and said that she had great potential for the wind attribute magic. Her cheeks blushed from being praised, and she asked again if she really had potential, to which the teacher replied positively. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, not knowing whether to believe him or not, and Lo continued to say that if she worked hard and trusted the spirit that granted divine protection, then she could become a high-ranking magician, but to do this, she couldn't be lazy. Josephine exclaimed, "Is he serious? And is it true that she can become a high-ranking mage?" She looked at him without taking her eyes off him. Law also smiled at her with all sincerity, confirming the answer to her question with just one look. Her heart was beating wildly from what she heard, and thoughts immediately came to her mind. Her father enrolled her in this academy because her magical power was a little better than others, and she thought that she would just become a bride after completing her training, but if there was another path that was potentially available to her, then why not take it? Josephine's gaze immediately changed to a more arrogant and capricious one. She told him that in order for her to become an experienced magician, he must teach her everything she needed. Lo laughed merrily and said that of course he would do his best. The girl immediately seized her chance and, coming closer to him, made him promise that he would not take his words back. Waving his hands, the guy, laughing sheepishly, said that he would not back down from his words. The bell rang and Franziska announced a break, and that their next lecture would be in the break room. All the students gathered in the break room, and Fran continued her lecture. She said that now they would talk about how to relax your mind. The girl began to explain with a smart look that the higher the magic they used, the greater the exhaustion would be, and in order to reduce this exhaustion, they had to maintain a stable mental state. She went on to say that there were two main ways to relax, and one was to take a bath to improve circulation. The girls sat contentedly with their feet in the water, and Franziska said that in practice, to relax, they would take a foot bath and think about natural scenery. The sad girl sat with her feet in the water, and recalled her conversation with teacher Luo. How she addressed him, she wanted him to teach her a lot. He promised that he would come later, but still did not. She sat with her head down, and thought that he probably forgot about her, since she was of low rank. Suddenly, as if hearing her thoughts, the young man sat down next to her and asked how she was doing, and said that she had good compatibility with water magic. She sheepishly nodded. Still sitting next to Dorilia, Law asked her if she wanted to do some imagination training with him. She lowered her head and sheepishly agreed. He leaned towards her ear and asked her to close her eyes and imagine the following picture. He began to tell in a pleasant voice that in the village of Alfur, where he grew up, there was a quiet forest, and a small spring was located inside this forest. The water of this spring was so clear and so beautiful that you could easily see the bottom of the spring. Alfurs, demons and animals loved to drink water from there. The girl seemed to be inside this forest, and next to the spring, she was so immersed in this scene and looked so calm and peaceful, enjoying what was happening. The guy smiled contentedly, because Dorelia had succeeded, and he liked the state she was in. Suddenly, Josephine jumped up to the teacher and started talking loudly. The young man immediately stopped it, asking her to be quieter because the other students were focused, and took her away so that she would not interfere. She sat down in her seat discontentedly, calling the guy a mean girl. The young man asked her to calm down. He understood why she did this. He violated the order in which he instructed the students. Josephine frowned and asked why he put these commoners above her, because she was of noble blood, so he should help her first. He sat down next to her with a sweet smile, and asked her not to talk like that, then asked her to show him what she was capable of. Lua winked at her and said that as a noble girl, she would be in charge of the people, so what was the point of complaining about the teaching methods of a commoner like him? She should be a patient girl. Josephine thought about it, and, a little embarrassed, turned away and said that she understood, and that she did not want to complain about such trivial things. The teacher stroked the student on the head and said that he was proud of her. She looked at him with a surprised look, and he, laughing, added that she was a good girl. All the remaining students stared at this scene in horror, because how rude it looked. Josephine, a noble daughter, being stroked on the head by some commoner. Everyone immediately began to whisper that Josephine would be furious at such an action. Josephine said through her teeth, displeased, that she didn't like it. And the guy asked again what exactly she didn't like. And suddenly she looked away in embarrassment, blushed, and said that she didn't like the way he addressed her. She wanted him to address her as just Jose. Everyone in the class stared, and then they screamed in shock because stubborn Galois actually blushed. They were impressed by how terrifying Mr. Luo's strength was. At the end of the lecture, all the students thanked the young man for the lecture. Suddenly, the guy was called out. Turning around, he saw a tall and beautiful girl. It was the student council president, Giselle. With a serious expression, the president said that an urgent matter had come up and asked him to go to the student council room. The teacher tried to refuse, saying that he had a meeting with the teachers, but it was no use. Giselle grabbed his hand and dragged him along with her, saying that they had to hurry because it was urgent. Entering the room, Giselle informed Nadia that she had brought Master Law. Nadia stood in the middle of the room, and with her arms outstretched, as if she wanted to embrace the guests, greeted the teacher. As soon as Nadia began to speak, Lo interrupted her, saying that he had a meeting with other teachers, and could he come later, but Nadia was adamant, saying that it was quick. Nadia said enthusiastically, smiling broadly, and putting her hand to her chest, that the student council members wanted him to become a student council advisor. The guy was surprised and asked what exactly this position entailed. Nadia answered that it provided support and assistance in the management of the student council, and that they had already received permission from the chairwoman. Lo thought about it and said that he did not think that it made sense for him, as a temporary teacher, to become a student council advisor. The girls immediately frowned and called him a bore, and that the real reason for this proposal was that they wanted to find an excuse to go on a date with him. The guy stared at them, not understanding what they were talking about, and said that he didn't understand them and what a date was, which she was talking about tirelessly. The girls were struck by lightning. They were surprised that the teacher didn't know what a date was. The girls explained it to him. Then the guy understood. He thoughtfully rubbed his chin and clarified once again that a date means when guys and girls go somewhere together, and not only. Teacher Law's thoughts out loud were interrupted by Giselle. She said that she wanted to clarify something. She said that she was doing it only for Law's sake, and as the student council president, she was only asking for help with council matters. Nadia immediately chuckled and asked in a teasing voice, like, "Is that really all she wants?" Giselle immediately flushed and replied that, and nothing more. Nadia came closer to the young man, leaning towards him and propping her hips with her hands. She asked what he would say about this. He answered that he was not against it in principle, but there was one but. And then Nadia, raising her eyebrows, asked him again if he was planning to marry Mrs. Francisca, because if not, then there should be no problem with dating them. The guy thought about it. Meanwhile, Nadia continued, as if she had heard from rumors that he had saved Francisca when she was attacked by demons, and that if this was so, then they could be said to be on equal terms. After all, he saved not only Fran, but also them from the demon, Nadia said, winking at the teacher. The guy thought again. He remembered Fran's words. After all, she herself asked him to be nice to them, and if he refused, then it would certainly not be considered politeness. Then he answered that he thought he could agree, and would be able to go on a date, if it was not this Saturday. Nadia asked with a reproachful voice if he was really going on a date with Francisca that day, to which Law replied in the negative. He said that he was going to have a martial arts competition with the Dumel family's butler, Jimon. Giselle looked at him with wide eyes and asked him if he was that Jimon, the butler known as the monster of this mansion. Smiling, the guy confirmed his words, adding that it was he who invited him to compete with him. Giselle cried out in a trembling voice, asking if she could come and watch, because she loved watching tough men use their bodies to the fullest. The boy said that he would ask him for permission. Then Nadia said that then they could arrange their date on Thursday afternoon. Since it would be a weekday, they could just tell the others that they would be returning home with Teacher Luo. The boy, looking at the girls who were discussing the upcoming date, wondered why Mistress Adelaide gave permission for this. The next morning came. In the Dumel residence in Fran's room, the girl was standing in front of the mirror and the guy was telling her about the upcoming date. The girl's face showed that she was upset. Lo, noticing this, waved his hands and said that if she wanted, he could refuse. Fran suddenly said that everything was fine. Francisca shouted at him that she didn't mind and that he could go. But her thoughts were devouring her. She was wondering what Nadia's goal was. What if she wanted to tease him for losing that competition? And then all sorts of obscene images started to creep into her head. Then she shook them out of her head and gathered her thoughts, clenching all her will into a fist. She decided that she wanted to ask Nadia in person, and if she really just wanted to tease him, then she had to stop her. She called Nadia to her office. She knocked on the door. Fran allowed her to enter. Nadia looked into the office, and Francisca greeted her and asked her to sit down at the table. There were 2 cups of hot tea on the table. Francisca started the conversation. She told Nadia that she heard that she was going on a date with Lo tomorrow. Nadia chuckled, saying that she knew he would tell Fran about it. Fran then continued, saying that she called her because she wanted to know her true intentions. The girl tensed up, and then with all seriousness and confidence in her voice, she answered that she was very serious about everything that was happening, and that she was not planning anything strange, because she just wanted to know more about the guy. Nadia said that she felt that Mr. Lo, her destined lover, Fran, had been looking at her with all her eyes all this time, and the girl meanwhile continued. She reported that she, just like Francisca, was in a situation on the verge of death, and then was saved by Mr. Lo. The girl, all emotional, pressed her hand to her heart, and said that she had allowed the demon to take possession of her heart and soul, and that she had been so stupid at that moment. The disciple lowered her head and with sadness in her voice continued to broadcast that she had sunk into the depths of hell, and Teacher Luo had come all this way just to save her, even though she was just a stranger to him. Nadia also added that she didn't know what her teacher's life was usually like. That's why she asked him out. She knew she was being rude. But before doing that, she had done some research into his relationship with Francisca herself, and she had concluded that they weren't planning on getting married yet, at which point Nadia caught Francisca off guard. Francisca's face gave away her entire state, and Nadia said that she knew that Fran was deeply in love with Lo, and that she understood that she should not interfere in their relationship like this. And then she bowed sharply to Francisca and asked her to give her a chance. The girl continued to bow to her teacher, and with tears in her eyes continued to say that she knew how real she was, that she was rude and cowardly. But Mr. Luo, knowing all this, still accepted her, and that being next to him was happiness for her, and that she would not even mind if she became only a lover for him, and for his sake she was ready to give up noble blood. Continuing to sit in the same position, Nadia said that she respected Mrs. Francisca very much, and she knew about her relationship with Lo, but still she did not want to leave him. All this time Fran listened to her, and did not interrupt each time her eyes became wider and wider. But suddenly she remembered something. She lowered her head and thought that this girl was the same as her, and she also did not want to lose him, and that this girl sitting in front of her was ready to love Lo. Suddenly, Francisca stood up and agreed to give Nadia a chance. Nadia looked at her with eyes full of tears, not understanding what Fran had just said. And Fran repeated again, louder, that she agreed to give her a chance. The girl was standing after classes near the academy and waiting for Lo. Then Lo called out to her and apologized for being late. Nadia, looking at him, immediately appreciated how handsome and tastefully dressed he was. She grumbled discontentedly that he was late for a whole 10 minutes. Suddenly, the young man noticed that someone was watching them. He exclaimed that Giselle was there too. Giselle immediately hid, embarrassed, and the guy said that maybe the three of them could get something to eat. But Nadia was not ready for anyone to ruin her date. She laughed out loud in displeasure and said that she would step away for a minute to talk to her. She came up and called out to Giselle, pretending so dumbfoundedly that it was supposedly a coincidence to see her here too. The disgruntled girl asked if Giselle was really going to follow them. She then exclaimed that of course not, because it was pure chance. Then Nadia said that they would go further, and wished Giselle to be more careful on the way home. Giselle did not answer, silently turning her head to the side. And then Nadia sarcastically asked if she really was going to continue following them. Giselle immediately flared up and shouted that she would never do such a thing, and turned around and left, and Nadia, looking at her back, smirked. Finally, Law and Nadia were left alone and they continued their date. Law asked the student if she really didn't want Giselle to go with them, to which Nadia replied no, because she wanted to go shopping with him. He asked what she wanted to buy. She told him that during the last competition she broke her wand and now she wants to find a replacement. Winking at him, she asked if he knew any good shops. The young man thought for a moment and said that unfortunately, he only knew Kingsley. The girl said that she had never heard of such a store and it would be interesting to try going there. Suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by a group of young people, led by a well-dressed guy with slicked back hair, saying that wasn't that super famous one from the Magic Academy, Lady Nadia. She looked at him with displeasure and reluctantly said hello. Lo asked her if she knew him. She whispered to him that of course she wished it weren't true, but the guy standing in front of him was Mrs. Francisca's younger brother. Lo was quite surprised and looked at the fair-haired guy, because he didn't know about his existence. Brother Fran said that he had just heard his sister's name from their conversation, and looking at Lo with displeasure, turned to him, asking who he was. The guy introduced himself as Lo Brandel, and added that he was his older sister's servant. The guy was displeased and surprised, and then, pointing his finger at both of them, loudly, almost shouting and discontentedly began to ask questions. Supposedly what kind of servant this was, and why he was with Lady Nadia. If he was the servant of his older sister, Law interrupted the flow of questions, and with a calm smile, asked him to first introduce himself, and then continue the interrogation. The guy yelled in rage that he was George Dumel, the man who would become the next head of the Dumel family, and that this commoner should remember his name. Lo, still smiling calmly, said that it was nice to meet you. And then Nadia, unable to contain herself, burst out laughing, and George looked at her with a desperate look and asked why she was laughing. George pointed his finger at Lo again and told Nadia that a noble lady shouldn't walk next to such a person. The girl smiled and chuckled and said that this person was a student council advisor, and what's more, they had received permission from his older sister. The poor guy felt sick, he couldn't believe it, right behind his back. His group of friends started laughing at him, unable to stand it. George shouted at Lo that he was challenging him to a duel to protect Nadia. Lo chuckled, saying that people in this country really love duels. And then their conversation was interrupted by a gang of men. They looked at the group of students, saying that they had been looking for them for a long time. Then they began to ask in a rude manner how they dared to take girls from the tavern. The students immediately tensed up and got scared. Not knowing what to do, they realized that things were bad. The gang leader came closer and gave one of the guys a hard slap in the face. Lo and Nadia stood in a stupor, and George shouted out his friend's name, trying to stop the beginning of the fight. A girl stood in front of the guy, standing up for him. She told the bandit that he was just a child, and called on him to stop. Without looking that there was a woman in front of him, he barked at her and hit her too, then grabbed Dennis, George's friend, and continued to hit him, saying that he needed a good thrashing so that he would learn his lesson. His friends were already running to his aid, shouting at the bandit to stop. From behind the bandit, unnoticed like a shadow, Lo appeared. He grabbed the leader's hand and silently looked at him, tearing his gaze away. The bandit realized with horror that he could not move his hand. Lo let go of his hand, and he finally pulled away, immediately jumping back and asking Lo who he was, and if he even knew who he was dealing with. Lo replied that those were his words and that he better take another good look at him. The bandit stood there threatening the young man, and at that moment he realized that he couldn't move. With a cold-blooded smile, Lo began to approach the bandit, saying that he hated people like him, people who hunted women and resorted to violence. With an icy glare, Law told him that a parasite like him deserved to die. The gang leader understood everything. He understood who was in front of him. He remembered those black pupils, his hair and his physique. It was he who destroyed the gang in Lazal. The bandit turned pale and trembled with fear. Lo loomed over the bandit and looked at him with a devastating gaze, telling him that those bandits he was thinking about now, he had destroyed them, and they no longer exist in this world. The boy's pupils dilated, and he asked if he wanted to suffer the same fate as them. The gang leader fell down and sat in front of him, and the rest watched the scene in shock. Looking at the remaining gang members, Law asked who wanted to be next. Everyone looked at him in horror and, screaming in fear, ran away. Lo looked at the leader again, but the girl stopped him. She asked Lo to stop there, as she felt very sorry for him. Luo smiled bitterly, because this was the woman that this bandit had just used violence on. He turned to the leader, telling him that he shouldn't take this for granted, and that if he didn't learn his lesson, and if he treated women like that again. And Lo said he knew what would happen. The man stared at him with fear in his eyes. Lo continued, pointing to the group of boys, that he would let them go. The bandit silently and obediently nodded his head. Next in line were George and his friends. Turning to them, he said that he was not going to judge them, but they should understand who their opponent was. And if they can't protect, or rather don't want to protect, then there's no point in walking around next to her. The guys looked at him with tears in their eyes, and he asked them if they understood everything, and they nodded their heads in response, saying that they understood everything. The guy approached the girl who had just gotten it and stood up for her offender. Lo asked if he could look at the wound. At the same time, he called out to the guy Dennis, who had also gotten it from the bandit. Having seated them next to each other, he smiled at them kindly, saying that they had been dealt a good blow, and snapping his fingers, all the wounds of the boy and the girl began to heal. Dennis and the girl looked at their healed wounds in amazement, and all the pain that was there also disappeared. George couldn't believe that Lo just used healing magic. The girl and the guy immediately began to thank him. As she walked away from the epicenter of the events that had just happened, Nadia was impressed. She couldn't believe that he had used healing magic so easily, without using any pronunciation. Nadia hugged Law's hand and said that this was to be expected, because he had saved her from that terrible demon, and that her intuition had been right all along. The guy was surprised, and she changed the subject, suggesting that they hurry to Kingsley. Entering Kingsley, Lo confidently opened the door and greeted him with the words, "How are you?" All three salesmen were surprised at first, but then immediately recognized him, and the owner of the store came out with a loud cry. He immediately greeted the guy, and the young man immediately got down to business. He pointed to the girl and said that he was walking with his student, and it turned out that she needed a new wand. Marco, smiling contentedly, said that he would prepare some of the sticks they recommended, and asked them to follow him to the special guest room. Entering the room, Nadia was given a choice of 3 different wands: rosewood, mithril, and Asian walnut. The girl looked at the goods with admiration. She liked absolutely all of them, but her favorite was the Asian nut stick. Marco told Nadia that since she was Lo's friend, he would give her a special discount, and the girl was very happy about it. Calling out to her teacher, the girl raised her wand and asked him how it looked. The young man replied that it looked great and asked to give her wand to him for a couple of minutes. She gave it to him. Then Law asked Marco if he could pour some power into this wand. Marco agreed, without understanding what the guy had in mind. Throwing the wand into the air, Lo began to chant, "Whistling spirit of the wind, grant divine protection to the one I will protect. Bless this rich land with your power and greatness." The wand was enveloped in smoke, and Nadia and Marco looked at Lo with admiration. The boy handed the wand to the girl, and she asked him what he did with it. He told her that he thought she could become an amazing wind mage, but only if she learned to communicate with her spirits. He remembered when Sylphida didn't even try to get close to her, and Law said he thought she knew the reason. Nadia lowered her sad eyes. The young man between now continued, but now that she was true to herself, this wind would call Sylphide, and greatly help her growth. The girl looked at the teacher with tears in her eyes, and the boy said that the power he added to this staff should help her as a wind mage, and that this staff and he would protect her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Nadia threw herself on the boy's neck, saying that she loved him. After saying goodbye and thanking Marco, Nadia said that now was the time to have a snack, and that it was her turn to take him somewhere. Having reached the right place, Lo asked Nadia in surprise if they would eat here. She answered positively, and then asked if everything was okay. Looking at the establishment where Nadia brought him, Lo said that Fran was inside. The girl asked why he decided so. He said that he felt her aura and that they had been to this place with her before. Smiling, he looked at Nadia and asked her if they both wanted to talk to him. The girl winked, stuck out the tip of her tongue, giggled, and said that it was difficult to hide something from him. Entering the establishment, Nadia, seeing Fran, began to wave her hand. Fran was beautiful. She was sitting at the table and drinking tea. Having greeted each other, Nadia apologized for the wait and told Fran that on the way they met her younger brother. Jumping up from the table, she immediately realized that something had happened and asked if they could discuss it over food. Looking at each other, Lo and Nadia agreed. Having told Francisca everything, Francisca covered her eyes with her hands in shame and said that her brother was a coward and also hot-tempered, and asked for his apology. Fran thanked Lo for saving her little brother. He said it was no problem for him. Francisca looked at the guy carefully and asked him if he wasn't going to ask why they called him here. Nadia drawled that apparently he wasn't interested in what they wanted to tell him. The young man replied that he just knew they wanted to tell him something important. For this he is ready to wait until they are ready. The girls looked at each other and were touched by how empathetic their beloved turned out to be. Then Francisca began to speak. She said that they were very grateful to him because he was their savior. Fran remembered how in that forest where she was all alone, he saved her from those strange demons who were going to eat her. And Nadia, in turn, remembered how Lo took her soul from the demon Vineth. And if it weren't for him, she wouldn't be here now. The guy stared at them with wide eyes, and the girls continued to say that he was their prince who saved their lives. The girls looked at Lo. Nadia said that they had feelings for him. Fran continued talking, saying that they loved him and wanted him, that he loved them, and that they wanted to always be with him. The girls grabbed each other's hands and looked at each other, preparing to say something, and each of them screamed at him to let one of them become his bride. The guy's mouth dropped open in shock. Then Lo agreed. The girls didn't believe him at first, but the guy said that if it made them happy, then he agreed. The girls looked at each other and then squealed with joy, hugging each other. Then the guy said that something was bothering him. He laughed sheepishly and asked what exactly the bride meant. The girls froze. Then, having come to their senses, each one in turn said that he really didn't know what it meant. He smiled again, embarrassed, asked for forgiveness, and said that he would be very grateful if they explained it to him. Turning away, the girls began to whisper. Nadia said that they should have guessed, since he didn't know about the dates, and Fran, patting her on the shoulder, told her to control herself, and that now they didn't have time to hesitate, because they couldn't retreat halfway. Fran glared at Lo, who looked embarrassed, and asked him what he thought of them. The girls froze in anticipation, and the guy looked at them thoughtfully. And then he said that he thought of them as beautiful women whom he had to protect, and that he wanted to do everything in his power to make their wishes come true. The girls thanked Law, saying that they were glad to hear that, and then explained something to him, that the Valentine Kingdom was a society centered around contracts, and that they needed him to make an oath. In short, it was a requirement of summoning magic, requiring one to agree to a contract with one's soul, meaning as a promise to one's soul that one must never break. Franz said that they wanted to continue to be by his side, and that was what it meant to be a bride. They asked him if he promised to continue to protect them in the future. Lo, laughing contentedly, said that he would continue to protect them, and he agreed for them to become his brides. The girls' eyes lit up with happiness. The girls jumped up from their seats and almost started dancing. They were glad that they managed to do it. The young man sipped his tea silently and looked at the girls smiling and thought how glad he was that they were happy. And then Nadia blurted something out. She said that it might seem a little trivial, but the bride is the woman he plans to marry, which means that they are going to become his wives. Lo almost choked on his tea, spitting it out. The guy shouted out what wives meant, and Nadia happily confirmed that there would be 2 lovely women next to him. And then it dawned on Lo that a bride meant a woman planning to get married. Fran handed Law a handkerchief and asked him not to worry, winking at him. She said that in the kingdom of Valentine it was allowed to have multiple wives, and there would be no problem if both she and Nadia married him. The restaurant waiters could no longer stand the noise, and approaching the table in terrible anger, asked them to be quieter. As Fran left the restaurant, she couldn't believe that they were kicked out of the restaurant because they were too noisy. Then Fran turned to Nadia. She smiled sweetly at her and said that now they would be very close, and that outside of school she could just call her Fran. Nadia was very happy with what she heard, saying that now she would call her sister Fran. Lo looked at them contentedly and smiled peacefully. Francisca's mother greeted them with a loud cry and joy. She was glad to hear that her daughter was getting married. Because she had been waiting for this so much, questions immediately began to pour in. She asked when they were planning the wedding, and the girl answered in a lost manner that they had not decided yet. Fran asked her mother to calm down first and discuss everything later. Suddenly Lo put his hand on the girl's shoulder and said that he would explain everything to her himself. Having sat down and calmed down, the young man explained to Adelaide about the situation. Mother Fran reacted very soberly to the situation, that Lo would marry not only her daughter, but also Nadia. She said that their country allows men to have several wives, so there is nothing morally wrong with it. But she said that there were several problems. The guy looked questioningly at the woman. Then she explained that firstly he needed to convince Nadia's father, Ernest Charlois, since he was very picky about formalities, since Nadia would be his second wife, and Lo was a commoner and might be against it since the Kingdom of Valentine pays great attention to social status. And the woman noticed something else. The couple looked at her questioningly. She said that something like this could happen again. Because there are many girls in the academy who feel the same way as Nadia. The mother turned to her daughter, telling her to be proud of the fact that she bears the title of first wife. Adelaide looked at the guy with curiosity. She said that in ancient times there lived a prince who had more than 100 wives, and she was very interested in how many of them Lo would have. Giselle, the student council president, was indignantly yelling at her friend Nadia. She was shocked to hear the news that her friend was marrying a teacher. Giselle said that he was a commoner, that her father would be against it, to which Nadia replied that she would convince him. Giselle could not believe that she had to rush so much. The friend continued to explain all the downsides of this situation, that she was marrying him together with the headmistress, and given her age and court rank, it was obvious that Nadia would be the second wife. Nadia said that she understood this and that she was not against it. Nadia, looking at her friend, narrowed her eyes and said that she was more worried about her. Giselle did not understand why. Then the girl asked why she was so worried about this, because she also loved Lo. Giselle immediately turned crimson, and then she started to deny it, stuttering that it wasn't true, that he was just a commoner capable of magic for her. Nadia suddenly asked her that when she was alone with Lo, she thought they had some special moment or something like that. And Giselle suddenly remembered how she had ended up in his arms. She immediately fell silent, and Nadia, parrying and still narrowing her eyes, told her that she could even be honest with herself. It was Sunday, which meant the day of the competition had arrived. The competition was held at the Dumel residence. Everyone was frantically preparing and looked busy. Jimon noticed Lo and asked him if he was ready. Lo noticed that everyone was rushing around and preparing something. Jimon said that after the competition there would be a feast here, because many wanted to look at us, and especially at Lo herself. The guy apologized, saying that the competition was supposed to be private. Jimon replied that he didn't mind having an audience. The butler, looking at the young man carefully, said that he knew his strength and therefore he intended to fight him with the intent to kill, since otherwise he would not be able to defeat him. The boy, smiling, said that it sounded pretty good. The guests began to gather. Among the guests were Giselle's father, the general of the army of the Kingdom of Valentine, Duke Leonard Calpanti. The Duke was called by Viscount Ernest Charlois, and also Nadia's father. The Viscount said that his daughter invited him to watch this interesting spectacle. Viscount Ernest said that his daughter had forced him to this place, saying that it would be even more impressive than the Colosseum. The Duke agreed, saying that his daughter had said the same thing, and that if it was boring, he could at least flirt with a dancer. Countess Adelaide came out to greet her guests. The Duke complimented her, saying that she looked beautiful, and the Viscount thanked her for the invitation. She warned them that the competition would soon begin, and that this fight would be between her servants, so it might be a bit messy, but she asked them to enjoy it. There would also be a feast, so after the competition she asked them to join in. The ordinary students who came to watch the competition looked around and were stunned. There were so many guests around, and not just any guests, but various dukes and viscounts. They thought, this is just a fight between Mr. Luo and an ordinary butler. What are all these privileged people doing here? Lo, seeing Josephine, was happy to see her and greeted her. He apologized for not telling her about the competition beforehand because he thought that she did not like barbaric actions. The girl melted from those words. She could not believe that he was so attentive. She wished him victory. Everyone gathered in the courtyard, and Law and Jimin stood in the middle of the courtyard. Law was warming up, and the butler, taking off his shirt, showed everyone his beautiful and pumped-up body. The Duke, looking thoughtfully at the guy, asked his daughter if everything would be fine with this servant, because he specializes in magic, but is inexperienced in hand-to-hand combat. He said that he thought the guy would be seriously crippled due to the difference in physique. In addition, they all fully realized what this butler is capable of. The butler stood ready. It turned out that he was under the late Frederick Dumel, and was known as the Black Steel. He was an excellent warrior, and used a unique form of martial arts, which killed hundreds of people. Giselle, watching the butler, was very shocked by what she heard. The Viscount, Nadia's father, also began to doubt that this competition would impress him. He said that he wanted to make a bet with his daughter, just for fun, but now he did not even see the point in it. Then Nadia said that she accepted the bet, and looking defiantly at her father, she said that she was betting on Mr. Lowe. Her father looked at her in shock, not understanding whether she was serious. She replied that of course she was serious, and that if she won this bet, then he would do everything she asked. Her father in turn also said that accordingly, if he won, then she would do everything he asked. And that was the decision. Jimin, preparing for the fight, told Law that he, as he said before, did not intend to hold back, and that Law should also try to kill him, and not hold back. And at the same second he attacked the young man, trying to hit him with his fist. The guy jumped back to avoid the blow. Jimin continued to press, delivering a series of blows and ending up millimeters away from Lowe's face, but the guy managed to dodge all the time. The surrounding people watched what was happening with interest. A moment later, Dvoretsky kicked with all his might, but the young man blocked it with his hand, somehow holding it in. Jimin stood up, and the guy jumped back again. Finally, Lowe decided to attack. He ran at full speed and hit the butler in the stomach, and a moment later the guy realized that he had not caused any injury to his opponent. Jimin got angry and kicked again, and again Law dodged the blow, jumping back. The butler drawled that Law could do nothing to him with his soft fists, and that he was aiming to kill him. Still standing, Jimin told him that if he continued to attack with such weak fists, he would never be able to defeat the Black Steel. The boy, putting gloves on his hands, muttered that everything was clear to him now, and that he realized that the butler was using breathing techniques to strengthen his body and turn his muscles into armor, and he also realized that he could change the trajectory of his punches and kicks at will. Jimin was amazed at what he heard. And Lowe, with the eyes of a hunter, looked at the butler and said that he was very interested. All the spectators were dumbfounded. The guy licked his lips with excitement and told his opponent that he wanted him to attack even harder. Otherwise, at this rate, he would not satisfy him. Jimin was also delighted by his animalistic expression. Shouting that this was becoming exciting, he attacked the guy. While delivering another series of blows that Law dodged, Giselle suddenly shouted at her father that the butler was not fighting fair and that she saw him using forbidden techniques, to which her father replied that it was fair because he was not a knight, but a simple servant, and that his job was to protect his master, so he had every reason to do everything possible to defeat his opponent. And unlike official knightly competitions, in real combat, there are no forbidden techniques. Jimin, in a rage, attacked and yelled at Law that there would be no fun if he just dodged, and the boy knew that his attacks wouldn't work against his muscular armor unless he used all his strength, and in the moment he stopped, he took a deep breath and prepared to attack. The butler stood up in ecstasy. He realized that Law had begun to take the fight seriously and shouted for him to show all his true strength, and before he could finish his last word, the young man struck his opponent in the neck with furious speed, and then, crouching down, he kicked him with a spinning motion, and when he started to fall, the guy grabbed Jimin by the hand, lifted him up, and threw him. Jimin fell on his back with a thud. Shaking in pain, Jimin screamed, and everyone watched in amazement. Countess Adelaide raised her hand and shouted that Lowe Brandel was the winner. Lowe stood over the fallen butler, and around him, various cries could be heard from those around him. After the fight, everyone began to slowly disperse, and Law leaned over Jimin, smiling at him in a friendly manner, and healed him with his magic. The servant came to his senses, and exhaling, said that he lost something similar. Then Law said that it was a good fight. The young man heard a voice behind him. Turning around to meet him, the Duke and Giselle were walking towards him. Lo immediately realized that it was the Duke who led the army of the Kingdom of Valentine. The Duke introduced himself as Leonard Calpanti, Giselle's father. The young man also introduced himself in response as Lo Brandel. The Duke immediately began to examine him from all sides. He told him that he had heard that he was very good at magic, and judging by his height, he had great potential in mastering martial arts. He asked the boy if he would be willing to join the Royal Knights. He almost started shaking him by the shoulders to get him to agree, when suddenly Francisca came up to them and said that she was very sorry, but Lo was needed at the Magic Academy. The Duke, having come to his senses a little, clarified for himself that Lo was her servant, she confirmed, and also added that he was not only a servant to her, but someone more. Leonard asked in shock if they really were, but before he could finish his question, Fran said that yes, they were planning to get married. In the Dumel residence in the main hall, a feast was in full swing, everyone was eating delicious food, and only talking about the duel that had just ended. George, Fran's younger brother, stood with a full plate, silently eating his food. Suddenly, Lo called out to him. George looked at Lo, frightened and lost, and did not know how to address him, neither as a brother nor as Lo. Lo said that he could call him by his first name. George congratulated him on his upcoming wedding, and apologized for that day. He called himself a weakling, but still decided to behave insolently. Then Law started to motivate him, saying that if he trained, he could become stronger. George, turning away, said that he was not such a strong magician, and compared to him, his mother or older sister, he had no talent, and that training would be a waste of time. He sighed bitterly and said that his mother agreed with this too, since she was the one who said that George needed to do something else besides magic. Then Lo asked him if they were learning the same things as in the girls' academy. George thought slowly and answered that it seemed so. Then the teacher suggested that he study with him, if not today, then at any other time. He said with a smile that if the previous techniques did not work for him, then he just needed to try new ones. Law continued to speak, saying that he felt that there was an amazing magical talent hidden within him. A spark of hope ignited in the boy. He was surprised that he was a talent. He began to ask Law to start training him, and Law smiled amiably and said that he promised. Jimin approached the guys and said that Mr. Lo was expected in the library. Entering the library, he saw the Viscount, Nadia, Francisca, and Adelaide sitting. The Viscount screamed in surprise that his daughter was getting married, and now he understood why she had made a bet. He was also shocked that his daughter was possessed by a demon. The girls hugged Lo from both sides, and Nadia said that Lo had saved her from the demon, and that she was marrying him, and not only she, but also her sister Fran. The poor Viscount sat in a semi-faint, processing all the information that had fallen on his head with all this wedding and demons. With her head down, the girl began to confess, saying that she used to be different, and that she let her emotions get the better of her, and summoned a demon. Because of this, her soul was corrupted. The father looked at his daughter with pity, and she continued. She wanted to fulfill her own desires, and was even ready to sacrifice the lives of people close to her. She screamed that she was simply terrible. And then Law interrupted her, saying that this was not so. The girl looked at the boy with tears in her eyes, and the boy explained to her that Vinit had amplified her negative emotions and made her think that this was not her true intentions, and that she was actually a kind girl who cared about everyone. Lo looked at the Viscount and turned to him, saying that Nadia was a little confused back then, but now she had found her way. Law said that he was ready to fulfill all her wishes, and that he would protect her for the rest of his life. Viscount Ernest sat dumbfounded, not knowing what to answer, and Nadia, picking up, said that not only Law agreed to this, but Countess Adelaide and Sister Francisca accepted her. Standing in front of her father, she said, let her marry him, because she wanted to be happy. Finally, Viscount Ernest stood up, took a deep breath, and said that if she was so determined, he didn't think she would listen to him. Touching his daughter's cheek, he said that since she was an aristocrat and a lady, he thought it was his responsibility to create a path to her happiness. But now he realized that she had found her own path. The girl, hugging her father, burst into tears, and the Viscount, in a trembling and quiet voice, said that he wanted her to be happy. All those who were in the library came out to all the other guests in the hall, and Adelaide, standing in the center, asked everyone to pay attention to her. I thanked everyone with all my heart for coming to her residence. Law stood in the center of the room. The girls crowded around him on both sides, and Adelaide, in turn, made an important announcement, announcing that her daughter, Francisca Dumel, and the daughter of Viscount Ernest Charlois, Lady Nadia, were marrying Law Brandel. For many, like Josephine, the news came as a bolt from the blue, and for others, like Giselle, the news was nothing new. It was late evening. Nadia knocked on the door, announced that she was coming in, and entered Giselle's room. She was sitting, wrapped up in a blanket, and asked what she wanted. Nadia sat down next to her friend and asked if she was still sulking. Exhaling, Nadia told Giselle that she had told her many times that she needed to be more honest. The girl hugged her friend and asked that she also liked Mr. Lowe. She also added that she did not need to worry about her sister Fran or her, and that if she was worried about her status, then they could convince her father together. To which Giselle replied with tears in her eyes that she did not have the courage to simply ignore class differences, but at the same time she could not continue to lie to herself. Giselle said that she had no choice and that she had to become Law's wife because he had once held her in his arms like a princess. Nadia tensely asked when she had been in his arms, and she told him that when he had saved her in the spirit world, he had taken advantage of her when she could not move. She screamed that he had carried her as a princess by force, and that now she could not become another man's wife. Then Nadia asked her with an unceremonious look why she did not tell him everything. Giselle threw her friend out the door and screamed that she would never confess to him. It was so ridiculous. Morning came, and again someone knocked on her door. Opening it, she saw Lowe on the threshold. He greeted her. Walking into the student council office, Law was not alone. Mrs. Cindy was next to him. Greeting her as well, she praised Giselle for her good work. Giselle looked at the guy, asking why he brought Mrs. Cindy, to which he replied that from a conversation with her, he remembered that she looked up to Cindy, and since the girl had become a little sloppy lately, it began to bother him, and instead of talking to her himself, he decided to invite Mrs. Cindy, and since they were both girls, it would be easier for them to solve the problem. She looked at him with eyes full of gratitude, and then thought he was thinking about her. Only Lowe said that he wanted to leave. The girl shouted for him not to leave, grabbing his sleeve. The guy looked at her in surprise, not understanding what was happening. And the girl frantically began to say that she liked him, that she already knew what was going on with Nadia and Fran, but it turned out that she loved him too, and she didn't want to leave him, and didn't want to let him go, so she said she wanted him to let her be with him too. In April, the academy held an induction ceremony. Giselle Carpente, the president of the student committee, congratulated the new students and wished them a fun and successful school experience. In the principal's office, the young teacher Lo Kun praised Giselle. She was a little embarrassed. Then she plucked up her courage and confessed that she loved him. Cindy Sensei burst into the room and shouted for Lo Kun to respond to the confession. The others were surprised to see that Sensei was about to burst into tears. The teacher silently hugged Giselle. The young teacher agreed to be with Giselle. The deputy said that she, like her earlier resistance, Giselle ordered to be silent. From above, another girl asked what her father would say. Giselle explained that her father had immediately agreed, since her brother would inherit the house and her sister was already married. The girls were delighted and decided to support Lo and become better wives. This semester has started in the second grade C. The teacher reminded us about tomorrow's lesson on summoning. We need to bring pentagrams. The pentagram is a magic pendant for summoning creatures. Previously, it was used by the magician Louis Sarian. Now the power depends on the magician. The students discuss the pentagram, and O'Leary is lost in thought. Noticing Teacher Lowe, he asks what happened. O'Leary says that everything is fine and runs away. Walking down the street, thinking how to buy a pentagram. You can't work, you can be expelled, and there is only hope for a secret quest from the army. O'Leary returned home. Her mother happily asked how her day went. She said that she studied with her friends. The mother praised her daughter and said that she was proud of her success. She is sure that she is respected at the academy. O'Leary's mother was a traveling artist, and her father was an adventurer. After the death of her father, the family found themselves in poverty, and her mother fell ill from overwork. O'Leary didn't want to bother her mother with her requests. She asked about the old clothes she had noticed. Her mother replied that it was her artist costume, that she had found it by accident and would clean it up later herself. O'Leary decided to go out, dressed as her mother, hoping that no one would recognize her as an academy student. She wants to get into the Adventurers Guild and earn a pentagram. There were a lot of people inside. Everyone was talking loudly and bargaining. The atmosphere in the guild was heavy. Suddenly a girl with a sword appeared in front of O'Leary, and two girls appeared behind her. There was a sense of power in her. She invited O'Leary to join the Lynx group. O'Leary revealed that she could summon water and fire and use the attack spell Water Blades. The impressed girl from the Lynx group decided to take her along on a mission to clear the forest of goblins. O'Leary introduced herself as Natalie. The girl with the sword turned out to be the leader of the Lynx group. She looked at her interlocutor carefully and asked if O'Leary had a boyfriend. The leader kept up with her and asked with keen interest if she had kissed anyone. Time passed. O'Leary began to doubt that they had really come to the right place. The leader suddenly became very quiet, and the girls behind her were constantly whispering. After a pause, she said that the contract was terminated, and O'Leary was going so far away that she would not be able to return to St. Helena. Men appeared from behind the trees. O'Leary screamed. The leader hit her in the stomach. O'Leary fell, clutching her stomach. The men said that before sending the goods, it is necessary to check the quality. She was laid on the ground. The men held her arms, one of them grabbed her breast, they took off her mask and were about to start. At that moment, the leader screamed, demanding that they stop immediately. The leader shouted that there was already a buyer for this girl. If something happened to her, the price would immediately drop threefold. She added that they would pay such a sum for such a cutie. O'Leary said that this was not so. The leader slapped her in the face and warned her not to say such a thing in front of her future master. She was brought to an unfamiliar place. There were girls in cages. A slave trader named Bastian said that O'Leary should be put there too. One of the workers held another girl and said that it was no longer possible to sell her. The slave trader said that she could only go there. The worker threw the girl into a cage. In front of her stood an ogre with 2 horns and sharp teeth. The worker told the ogre to hold still, so that he wouldn't have to clean up for a long time. O'Leary recalled that she just wanted to earn a pentagram, but things turned out differently. She began to cry, asking inside for someone to save her, especially Lo, Sensei. Suddenly, the man holding O'Leary fell. A voice was heard calling them rabble-selling girls, and if she was a monster, then who were they? The man was lying on the ground and the girl was standing on one leg on him. It was Moral, who belonged to the young teacher Lo. She said that she was taking this girl with her. The leader exclaimed, asking where she had come from. The slaver, not understanding what was happening, turned around. His ogre was lying on the ground. The young teacher left them on Morala and held the girl in his arms, whom the slaver had given to the ogre. O'Leary immediately recognized him and shouted his name. At this time, the leader ordered the girls nearby to grab them. As they began to attack, Moral touched them and knocked them both away. The leader stood in shock, not understanding what she had done to them. Moral had simply sucked out their magic power. The leader gripped the sword tightly and attacked. Moral hit her with her hand. The leader lay on the ground. The young teacher untied O'Leary's hand. She immediately asked for forgiveness, explaining the circumstances and begging not to expel her. He said that everything would be fine and that there was no need to worry. She resigned herself, closed her eyes and lost consciousness. The same slave trader stood behind the teacher, threatening him with a sword, saying that he would not get out so easily. The teacher stood up. He told the slave trader Bastian that slave trading was forbidden and would be severely punished. However, the slave trader told him that there were people in the kingdom who could help with the trade and told him how it all worked. Every item will not be perfect, and they become food for the ogre. This time, the slave trader was late. Then he shouted at the top of his voice for the boys to get out. The boys didn't come out. The teacher had dealt with them long ago, only he remained. Among them were even first-class magicians and warriors. The teacher began to approach the slave trader, but an ogre stood behind him. The slave trader was delighted and ordered him to kill the teacher. As the ogre attacked, a shield appeared from the teacher's hand, and he stopped the blow. The slave trader did not understand what was happening. The ogre looked straight into the eyes, then turned and began to approach the slave trader. They weren't the only slavers in the kingdom. The ogre took the slaver in his hand. He said he liked to hear the dying screams for help. The teacher replied that he liked it too. The ogre brought the slaver to his mouth, but the teacher was disgusted. At that time, Morale tied up the leader and the girls next to her. Since O'Leary was acting strangely at the academy, the teacher assigned Moral to watch over her in his place. Moral did not touch the prisoners because of the order, and the teacher cast spells on them. O'Leary was in great pain, and Moral regretted that she had not helped her earlier. The teacher asked why she had not helped her immediately. Moral did not help O'Leary because she behaves frivolously with strangers, and this should have been a lesson for her. After a while, O'Leary stood up. It was already dark, and voices could be heard behind the door. Opening it, she saw her mother, who greeted her, and the teacher was already sitting at the table. The teacher told her mother that they had met yesterday and O'Leary had fallen asleep in the staff room. He made a sign, and she supported his version. The teacher used healing magic on her mother. O'Leary's mother was surprised. The teacher had cured her just like that, asking only that O'Leary try. The young teacher wanted to talk to O'Leary, and the mother went to get some tea. They went into another room. O'Leary asked about morale, then said that she might be expelled from the academy for breaking the rules. The teacher told O'Leary that he trusted her and handed her a pentagram. O'Leary was surprised that he gave away such an important thing. The teacher said that she needed the pentagram more now. The pentagram was old but beautiful. It seemed that the teacher trusted her. He said that if there were any difficulties, she should turn to him. The teacher realized that her mother needed help. He asked her not to do work that violated the rules of the academy and promised to help in return. He believed in her talent, and she thanked him with tears. The next day, O'Leary went to the academy. Lo-sensei met her and told her to come to the teacher's room after class. They were already waiting for her in the teacher's room. 3 girls were sitting inside. There was the student council president, Miss Giselle, and her deputy, Miss Nadia. The girl at the table invited O'Leary to sit down, promising to explain later why they had all been called together. The girl started reading the paper and said that the scholarship would be increased and the tuition fee would be waived. The CEO was determined to resolve this issue as soon as possible, so everyone needed to try their best. Then, although it was not relevant, the girl said that there was work for O'Leary's mother. A powerful aristocrat was looking for a maid for her house. She added that she was a very good person. O'Leary burst into tears of gratitude. The girl added that there was another important conversation for O'Leary. The deputy called her an actress with a grin, and said that she was afraid in vain because O'Leary started apologizing, but the president asked to communicate normally. They asked O'Leary what she thought of Teacher Lo. When O'Leary asked why they needed to know, the deputy repeated twice that 3 of Lo's brides were sitting in front of her. O'Leary asked if Lo had helped each of them. It turned out that he had. He was like a prince to them. They loved him so much that they married him, despite their social status. The president said that they vowed to be with the teacher for the rest of their lives, to help him and accept new ones if they were worthy. O'Leary replied that at first she simply admired his magic and wanted to be like him. Then her admiration turned into interest. O'Leary confessed that she also loved Teacher Lo very much and wanted to be with him. The girls were waiting for just such an answer. Then the girl with long hair who was holding a paper invited Lo in. O'Leary didn't understand where he came from. It turned out he had been invited in advance. The teacher asked if he really was the right one for her. O'Leary admitted that she had been thinking about him and watching him all the time. She asked him to let her love him. On a day off, the teacher was waiting for Fran in front of Dumel's cottage. She ran up and apologized for being late. The teacher said she was dressed nicely. Fran tried to look smart for the meeting. Later, he asked her to hold hands. He took her hand. Then the teacher said it was time to go. The teacher thanked the girl with long hair for helping O'Leary. Then he offered them something to eat and started looking for a cafe. All the passers-by paid attention to them. Lo always attracts attention with his appearance and height, and in Valatin there are few people with black hair and eyes. Suddenly, he said that there is a cafe nearby called Hero's Stop. He opened the door of the cafe. All the men immediately looked at him. Fran felt a little scared. Then a girl came up to them and greeted them. After a while, the girl apologized for being late and handed over a mug. The mug was unusual, and the staff politely warned that the food would be brought later. Fran was surprised that the staff was so nice. They were about to clink glasses when 3 rude-looking men entered the cafe. One of them smirked and remarked on the strange name of the establishment. A female staff member firmly asked them to remain silent or leave. The man started to harass the girl, but she said that touching was forbidden. Then Fran couldn't stand it any longer and loudly asked how they dared to behave like that. The teacher told the robber to take his hands off the girl. The robber said that he shouldn't make a hero of himself. The teacher warned that he wouldn't do it a second time. The robber laughed and asked what he could do. Teacher Lu hit him and the bandit flew to the side. One began to attack him. He grabbed him by the neck and lifted him above his head. The others looked on in surprise. As the robber was heavy, the others prepared to attack. One big man grabbed them by the collars and lifted them up, saying he would deal with them himself. The staff was glad that Grandpa Dalen was there. Grandpa chased the bandits away. In the cafe, people praised Grandpa Dalen and the teacher. Grandpa thanked them and said that he was the owner of the cafe, then offered a special set as a token of gratitude. The long-haired girl really liked the food. Then the teacher began to introduce himself. It turned out that Grandfather Dalen knew the grandfather of the long-haired girl. His grandfather was an adventurer, and the owner of the cafe was his partner. He loved adventures and was respected by everyone. The grandfather added that he could help those who wanted to become adventurers. The girl said that the food in the cafe was delicious. Then she thought that maybe Lo wanted to become an adventurer. Suddenly Lo asked to introduce her to St. Helena and suggested visiting places that she liked. They bought different things, tried on hats, visited the circus, and, holding hands, returned in a great mood. The teacher noticed that it was getting dark and suggested that they go home. But the girl, taking his hand, asked him to stay a little longer and did not want to go home. The girl said that she had already warned her mother that she would not be returning home and had booked a hotel room. She then began to apologize, but the teacher reassured her, saying that everything was fine and suggested that they spend the night together. They came to the big, beautiful Hotel St. Helena. The girl had been there before as a child, and she liked it very much. She thought that the teacher would like it too. When they entered the hotel, the girl asked the teacher if he wanted to become an adventurer, as he had said before. He replied that he did not yet, but perhaps in the future. The girl was upset. The girl was worried that one day the guy might disappear from her life because he wanted to become an adventurer, and she forced him to be a teacher. The girl said that Lo-sensei wanted to become an adventurer to help the village, and cried, thinking that he would disappear. He replied that he would take her and everyone with him, even if he became an adventurer. Then he unexpectedly kissed her on the lips. He held her hand and said that he didn't want and wasn't going to let her go anywhere. In the room, on the bed, they kissed. The girl pulled away and said that Lo was a good kisser, and it was probably not the first time he did it. But he never kissed, he only approached girls to help. Lo said he was a loser. The girl with long hair kissed him on the lips and, coming closer, began to take off her clothes. She told the guy that he was her first, too. The guy blushed, kissed the girl, and started to undress. His lips slowly moved to her neck. She closed her eyes in pleasure. The next day, Fran asked about the pentagram and said that the lesson would not be difficult if they had practiced breathing and concentration. The students remarked among themselves that she had become more beautiful lately. Then the teacher Fran said that those who already had practice were going to the ritual site, and those who still needed to practice were to go out with Sensei Lo. On the street, Jose, adjusting his hair, asked what lesson he was teaching her today. Due to the good weather, we decided to do some breathing practice. The girls were surprised that Jose, although he knows how to do it, still runs after the teacher like a dog. Then they admitted that they were not confident in their abilities. The teacher said that if you are afraid and do nothing, your talent will not be revealed. He believed that everyone has abilities. Then the teacher suggested starting the practice, asked everyone to lie down and let them know if they needed help. The students lay down on the ground and closed their eyes. Someone called out to the teacher when he turned away. Jose hugged the teacher, asking him to talk to her alone somewhere else, as she needed advice. The teacher also wanted to talk to her alone. Sitting, Lo-sensei told the girl that it would be better to go to teacher Fran's lesson than to follow him, but she stubbornly insisted. She said she wanted to be in Lo's class. The teacher thanked her for her friendly attitude. Suddenly, Anda pushed the guy away with both hands. Putting him on the ground, she said that she was not just being friendly towards him, and to love him, and approaching kissed him. After Josie raised her head, tears appeared in her eyes. The teacher did not understand what was happening. Later, he noticed that the girl had been acting strange lately, but she replied that everything was fine. He stroked her hair and made it clear that he was ready to help. Father Jose, without asking her opinion, decided to marry his daughter to the second son of the Marquis of Aldevan, so that they would have a successor in the family. Jose had already met Isidore, Aldevan's second son. He complimented her, but angry at her silence, he approached her, grabbed her by the chin, and said that she was his adornment. Jose pushed him away, said she had a loved one, and ran away. And Aldovan's son shouted after her that she would answer for this, Colosseum. After listening to her, the teacher said that he understood everything. In tears, Onda hugged him and said that she would not marry anyone but him. Then the teacher suggested meeting after class. They met in the principal's office. All 4 of the teacher's fiancés were sitting inside. He apologized for not warning them in advance. However, student Jose said that she already knew about it, and, despite everything, her feelings had not changed. They started talking about a student being married off to an unloved man for the sake of a successor, and then asked that even if fate changed, would she still choose Lo Sensei? The student stood up and said that she had long been ready to become the teacher's wife. While the other girls applauded and praised her, she looked at Lo Sensei. Lo opened his arms invitingly, and the student, saying his name, hugged the teacher very tightly. At this time, at the Galois estate, the student's father was worried about his daughter and asked the butler if she had returned. He replied that she had not returned. The father remembered his meeting with the Marquis of Aldovan. The Marquis said that his daughter's behavior and words were very indecent and asked if her father knew about it. He added that it would be better to talk to his daughter. The father regretted not having talked to her after the date. Suddenly, the butler came running and announced that Jose had arrived. The father stood up, and he and the Marquis went out, expressing their concern. The student apologized. The daughter invited her father inside to talk about something important. She told him everything about the meeting, and upon hearing this, her father became very angry. No one dares to treat his daughter like that. For pushing Isidore away, the daughter apologized, and the father also apologized, starting to show interest in the young man she loved. But when the daughter said that he was a commoner, the tea spurted out of his mouth in surprise. Then the father was surprised how she could fall in love with a guy with 4 wives, and how could a commoner even have 4 wives? He asked her why the girl didn't want to become a magician. The daughter said with confidence that she would become a high-level magician. She would marry the teacher, and in difficult times they would support each other. So she asked her father to meet that guy. The father, surprised by his daughter's confidence, agreed to meet him. The girl thanked and hugged her father. At this time, at the Aldovans' estate, the father began to worry about Isidore's delay, but the eldest son calmed him down, saying that Isidore was no longer a child. The eldest son recalled the student's behavior towards Isidore, and suggested using it to show the people how ill-mannered she was, and also to set a trap for Father Jose. The father praised his eldest son and agreed with his plan. Then the son said with a smile that he had prepared another interesting thing, which raised the father's mood even more. The next day, near the campus where Jose was sitting on the ground, a teacher approached her and asked how she was doing. He was glad that the girl was doing well, and she said that she was going to introduce him to her father. The teacher decided to at least say hello. Soon, Aldovan's eldest son came. The senior tried to stop him. The eldest son asked where the student was. The teacher replied that she was in class and added that what this guy was doing was breaking the rules. The young man said that a teacher of low status could do nothing to him. Then the student accused Jose of a crime. When the teacher asked her, she replied that she had done nothing. Aldovan, noticing Jose, said that her father would answer for all this. The girl was scared. When the teacher started to approach the guy, he, in a commanding tone demanding to give it to Jose, suddenly sank to the ground and lost his voice. The boy stood there in confusion. The teacher called the guards and suggested that the boy go to a quiet place for a conversation. The teacher informed the guard about the boy's violations of the rules, and the guard agreed with him. The teacher then asked one of the girls to take the students inside and tell everything to teacher Fran. He stayed behind to interrogate Aldovan. The boy was taken to a separate room. He became angry and said that everyone would be punished for the way he had been treated, but the teacher was not interested. He then said that the Aldovan family had filed an official complaint with Father Jose. Jose fainted from worry. The teacher caught her and, looking at the boy, told him in a cold tone not to tell lies anymore, otherwise he would simply be destroyed no matter what. The elder Aldovan demanded action from the guards, but they did not react. He shouted, but it was useless. Then the boy said that he would achieve her punishment through the court. and the teacher would personally meet with Aldovan. The teacher hit the wall, looked at the guy, and said that he wasn't setting up a circus here. He said, holding his chin, his aura showing that these words were just a lie. The teacher revealed the Aldovan's plan: to blame Jose and drive her father to suicide. The eldest son was shocked. The teacher realized that the situation was bad and that he needed to hurry. He handed Aldovan over to the guards and ran out himself. On the street, a man was talking to a guard, noticed the teacher, and tried to stop him, but he dodged and ran away. Fran's grandfather, Duke Edmund Dumel. He recognized the teacher, and the teacher ran forward without looking back. He ran and called Bibi for help. Suddenly, a girl appeared and teleported him. At this time, Father Josen arrived at the Aldovan's estate, hoping that the conflict would be resolved today. When he entered, Aldovan, who was waiting for him, said he would give him another chance. After Josen's father apologized, Aldovan invited him for tea, saying he wanted to marry the girl to his nephew. But when he said she had a loved one, Aldovan said he would fire him from his position as deputy finance minister. The father remembered his daughter's words. Having made his decision, he said that he refused the Marquis's offer. The Marquis became angry and threatened that he would lose everything. But the father, raising his voice, declared that for the sake of his daughter's happiness, he would not mind giving up everything. Then the Marquis said that he would sue him for insulting a high official. Seeing how low this man had fallen, the father did not object to the trial. Suddenly, a servant grabbed Josen's father by the arms. The Marquis said that he would not go anywhere until he drank the magician's tea, which puts one to sleep forever. He then said that they would take his body to the estate to make it look like suicide and that his daughter would live in abundance, after which he raised the cup to his mouth. He added that a suicide note would be written in his name, Josen would be tortured, and then forced to marry her nephew, after which the cup was brought closer to his lips. Lo, with an enraged face, attacks the man in front of him with a jump. Brandel kicks the man with the mustache and glasses in the face. He falls backwards. The wizard lands in front of two men, one of whom holds the other by the arms. The first one asks the wizard in a rude manner, bewildered, who he is. Lo swings his arm and throws the man back. He flies a good distance away. The man he was holding starts to fall. However, Loe picks up the man and addresses him with a friendly smile. The teacher says that he is pleased to meet Father Jose. The father, stunned, asks who it is. Lo introduces himself, reminding him that he is in charge of the man's daughter's group. Brandel continues to smile innocently. The man is even more surprised. A mocking laugh is heard from behind. The man who flew back rises, showing his changed face. It has become ugly and frightening. Father Jose voices the butler's changes out loud. Lo warns his father that it could be dangerous and asks him to stay behind him. The man is scared. Brandel assumes that the butler is not human. The butler is on all fours in a frightening pose. He begins to move quickly. Objects start flying around the room due to the butler's rapid movement. He blames his father for the problems. The creature threatens to kill Father Jose and attacks him. However, the teacher attacks the butler faster, kicking him with a flying kick. The creature falls, coughing. The wizard casts a numb spell, rendering the butler unable to move. Lo concludes that he is dealing with a rare. The man sitting behind the wizard asks about the butler's nature. Lo explains that the Red Cowl destroy people. He also says that this Red Cowl is an ally of the Aldovans, who are committing a crime against the father. In addition, he says that the Red Cowl do not do something like this alone. The creature hoarsely protests that a human dares to cast magic on it. The teacher replies that he needs some information from the Red Cowl, and that he must go somewhere. The guy casts a banishment spell, directing it at the Riedel. Magic is directed at the creature with great force. With a scream, the Red Cowl disappears. The man behind Lo looks at the boy's back in shock, and mentally asks how a person with such power can be an ordinary teacher. The teacher addresses the man as his father-in-law. He, in turn, is perplexed. The boy, smiling, suggests that the man find his butler. The man comes to his senses and says that the butler Arnold cannot be bribed. Lo confirms that Arnold should still be at the estate. Father Jose decides to go and find the butler as quickly as possible. Brandel calmly takes the man in his arms, when he again falls into shock at the teacher's actions. The father asks Lo what he is doing. Lo only asks him to hold on tight. A portal appears beneath his feet. They fall into the portal. Brandel is completely calm, while the man screams. The men arrive at the scene. Father Jose is on all fours in the road, trying to figure out what just happened. Someone nearby gasps, which Lou reacts to. The maid calls out to the gentleman with concern. The guy in the suit standing next to him asks with equal concern what the gentleman is doing here. The father immediately asks where the butler Arnold is now. The guy and the maid exchange glances. They start to run away. Lo immediately uses a numb spell, and they can't move. The armored guard tries to attack the teacher with the order to release the servants. However, Lo uses a numbing spell on him too. The three servants try to come to their senses. The master is upset to realize that his servants have accepted the Marquis's bribe. The servants shamefully lower their eyes to the floor. Lo commands the servants to tell him everything, and asks them where Arnold is. He uses a repentance spell. The servant is indignant that he will not tell anything. However, because of the spell, he blurts out that they tied up Arnold and threw him in the barn on the orders of the Marquis. He is surprised that he told this. The maid calls him a fool. Lo asks if the Marquis asked the servants to dispose of Count Galois' body. The guard answers positively, adding that they wanted to report the Count's suicide to Captain Lion and provide the suicide note as evidence. The guards promised a beautiful girl as a wife. Brandel asks if Captain Lion is involved in the bribery. The servant replies that only he himself is involved. Lo turns to his father-in-law and tells him to hurry to the barn. After a while, they find themselves in front of it and enter it. Both are shocked by what they see. Grandfather the butler lies tied up on the floor. The Count screams his name. The butler is untied. Arnold is glad that the master is all right. The Count embraces the butler and rejoices that he has always been faithful. Lo watches this scene with a smile. At the academy, a girl and an elderly man are sitting in a room. He compliments the girl's appearance but criticizes her magic. She giggles and says that her uncle is swearing again. Her uncle is the Grand Duke of the Kingdom, Edmond Dumel. She corrects herself and calls him Duke. Edmond replies that it is just a fact. The Grand Duke mentions Lo and is indignant that he ran away from him. The girl responds with a laugh and justifies the teacher by saying that he is a busy man. Edmond criticizes Lo for holding and interrogating the nobleman. The Duke's niece replies that if the Aldovans are truly guilty, the boy will prove it. The Duke ponders. He turns to the girl with interest and asks to lend him a tutor. She categorically refuses. Their argument can be heard beyond the room they are sitting in. Josephine's father runs into the academy's infirmary to see his daughter. She answers him from her bed. She jumps out of bed and runs into her father's arms. Her father apologizes to her, telling her what a wonderful man she has found. The man turns to Lo. He says that Lo risked his life to save him and Arnold. He adds that if it weren't for Brandel, he wouldn't be here. The boy is surprised and confused. Father Jose continues that with Lo, his daughter will not be afraid of any misfortune. The Count reminds Josephine that her loved one must be able to protect her. He turns to Lo. Galois calmly thanks the boy for saving him and asks him to take care of his daughter. Brandel is pleasantly surprised. Josephine looks at the teacher from behind her father. Lo bows to his father and replies that he will definitely take care of her. Father heard giggling. Countess Dumel appears in the infirmary. She says she heard that someone else wants to marry Lo. The Count wonders what the Countess was doing there. The Countess calls Galois a new member of the family. He replies, slightly upset, that he can hardly be called a Count now. Dumel, still smiling, calls his uncle. Duke Edmond enters the infirmary. Galois stutters and calls him High Excellency. Edmond asks the Count to relax. Edmond says he knows Galois is not involved in the Aldovans' plot. The investigation is still ongoing. Edmond adds that he will now be Galois' guardian. Galois is shocked. Galou cannot believe it and asks Duke Dumel again. He answers positively. He adds that he will report this to His Majesty himself. The Duke also voices the condition that in exchange for guardianship, he will use the abilities of the Count. Galois bows in gratitude to Edmond. The Duke wants to talk to Lo. He turns to him, but the teacher has already managed to run away. Duke Dumel is indignant, and his niece Adelaide reminds him that she warned him about Brandel's busy schedule. Lo wakes Aldovan up in his estate. When he wakes up, he sees Lo and insults him. The man accuses the boy of kicking him. He threatens Brandel with death. Lo ignores his threats and offers to count all of Aldovan's crimes. Lo's first crime is an attempt to falsify guilt, along with an attempt on the life of a subordinate. The second is the kidnapping and accusation of an innocent girl. Aldewan tries to justify himself. Brandel stops at just 2 crimes. The man panics and tries to shake off the blame. Lo asks if there is another man behind the man. The man still panics and denies it. Lo sees no benefit in saving the aristocrat. Lo threatens the aristocrat with the most terrible death. The man hysterically mentions Count Galois, as if he had betrayed him. Eldevan goes mad and wishes death on the entire Galois family, calling them useless. He adds that all useless people must die, which means everyone except himself. Lo looks at the man with disdain. He begins to cast a spell that will make the nobleman disappear. A creature with 3 pairs of wings appears behind the wizard. The guy finishes the spell by saying that an aristocrat is supposed to suffer. Brandel sends Aldovan to the world of the dead. Soon the aristocrat Daniel was found in a state of shock. He was detained by the royal guard. He was interrogated and confessed to all the crimes. Aldevan was given a mitigated sentence, but he died the next day under unknown circumstances. After the investigation, the other accomplices confessed to their crimes. Count Gerard was found innocent, thanks to Edmund's help. King Richard Valentine dissolved the Aldevan family. All subordinates and bribed guards were stripped of their titles or executed. Most were banished from the kingdom. 2 figures in black cloaks discuss how it would be difficult for one person to destroy the Riedel. One of the figures mentions Lo Brandel. The Red Cowl, banished by Brandel, ponders the cause of his body's heaviness. He comes to the conclusion that it is some kind of magic. Something makes the Riedel raise his head sharply. Lo and a girl in a dress appear before the Red Cowl. The wizard introduces himself to the Red Cowl. The creature confesses that its soul and body were under the control of a demon. Lo asks the name of this demon. Red Cowl identifies the demon as a great marquis named Andres. Lo recalls that Andres is one of Louis Sorian's subordinates, and that he enjoys amusing himself with human chaos. Brandel asks about its purpose. Red Cowl replies sadly that he could only obey its orders, he does not know its purpose. Brandel thanks the creature for answering his questions. It looks at the boy with hope. The wizard drops to one knee to be on the same level as the creature. Lo asks him what he will do now. Lo says he learned about Red Cowl's past by looking into his soul. Brandel tells about the creature's past, how his race lived in symbiosis with humans long ago. However, humans betrayed them, and the Red Cowl's friends and loved ones were killed. The creature looks at the boy in shock. Red Cowl promised himself to take revenge on humans. His hands were always red from human blood. Red Cowl clutches his head, bending in half. Red Cowl, crying, begs Lo to kill him and send him to the bottom of the underworld to his friends and loved ones. Brandel regrets that he cannot do this. Brandel explains that all the creature's friends and loved ones have been reborn and live in other worlds. Red Cowl doesn't want to believe it. The girl who came with Lo calls out to the Red Cowl and asks him who she is. The creature replies that she is a succubus. She asks why she serves Lo despite the hatred of humans. She doesn't let the Red Cowl answer, saying that Lo has found a place for an outcast soul like her. The succubus offers the creature to join Lo. The wizard explains that the Red Cowl has been under the demon's control all this time. He offers to remember who the Red Cowl really is. Brandel grows 3 pairs of wings and begins to clean the Red Cowl. Red Cowl changes his appearance. He now looks like a young blonde boy in a patterned suit and with pointed ears. Lo explains that the boy's ugly appearance was due to a demon curse. He adds that he needs the Red Cowl and invites him to take his wing. The boy looked at the wizard with hope. He asked Lo never to leave him. Brandel replies that he will never leave him because he is now part of his family. He calls the Red Cowl to him. The boy falls into the teacher's arms, rising slightly on his toes. Several days have passed since all the incidents. A lesson is taking place in the ritual room of the Magic Academy. A long-haired girl stands next to Lo. She reminds them about the pentagrams. The students respond that they didn't forget to bring them. The girl begins to explain the drawing of the summoning circle. O'Leary Botts recites a spell, addressing the apostle in heaven and asking for a servant from heaven. After the glow, a medium-sized dog with light-colored fur appears. The girl looks at the dog with admiration. The teacher congratulates O'Leary on his success and suggests giving the dog a name. The student pets the dog, realizing that it is a girl. The girl names the dog Jessica. She leans her head against the dog's head. Teacher Brandel warns that the dog must be sent back before O'Leary runs out of mana. Anne Boucher says that she could not do as well as O'Leary, turning to her neighbor Louise Berthier. Louise rudely asks Anna to be quieter as she tries to concentrate. Anna is surprised by her friend's alarmed reaction and takes offense at her. Louise casts the same spell at the call of the heavenly servant. Louise is upset by the result. Teacher Lo approaches her and says with delight that it is an anao. Anao is a spirit-like creature that obeys the summoner. It is considered a rare creature. Louise doesn't know what to do. Lo explains to her that the anao needs a vessel to exist in their world. He gives her a wooden doll. Louise takes the doll and infuses it with an anao. The student orders the doll to stand up, then to walk. And the doll obeys her orders. The other students whisper behind Louise's back, criticizing her. Berthier purses his lips. Master Brandel turns to the other students and explains that the anao is one of the smartest creatures. He adds that the Academy only uses safe creatures, but in battle the anao can be a dangerous opponent. Lo says that only failed mages laugh at other people's magic. The two students frown indignantly. Louise looks at the teacher, embarrassed. The students immediately approve of Louise's magic. Anna watches what is happening, frowning. During the break, classmates surrounded Louise with questions. Anna looks at the crowd around Louise with resentment. Anna failed this mission. She thinks it's unfair. Lo notices her. After school, the teachers and students gathered in the teacher's room. The teacher told them that her mother had given them an estate in the form of a love nest. The other girls were excited. They discussed the huge size of the estate. One of the girls worries that living in such an estate will be expensive and offers to take this part on herself. Sister Fran praises the daughter of the Deputy Minister of Finance. She adds that there are some details that need to be sorted out. She asks Lo to free up a day for this. The girls discuss purchases and savings. O'Leary wonders how much she can sell her hair for to contribute to the new estate. The girl sitting next to O'Leary turns to her and asks her to teach everyone household chores. The girls are indignant that they know how to do housework, although they only give orders to the servants. O'Leary, too, in exchange for doing household chores. O'Leary hugs Nadia with tears in his eyes, thanking her. Fran adds that her mother Adelaide and Uncle Edmund are hosting a dinner party. Fran says that the girls were asked to be there without fail. Giselle reflects on the fact that Duke Edmund used to be a warrior. Nadia teases her. Giselle points to Lo, calling him their husband. She asks Nadia if she didn't latch on to him because he was strong and handsome. Nadia doesn't deny it. Giselle is happy that she beat Nadia in an argument. She, in turn, is upset. Brandel watches the girls. At night, Lo lies in bed with a blonde girl, stroking her head. He watches her sleep with a peaceful smile. The guy goes to the window and uses a spiritualization spell. He flies through the window and lands on the ground. Before him stand those he has sheltered, a succubus, a red cow, and a creature with an animal head in armor and with a cold weapon. He bids them go. Lo stands in the middle of the street in a light shirt. After the incidents with the Andalvans, he tries to find the demon Andras, but he does not succeed. Brandel muses that when the sun sets, the city comes into contact with another world. It is at this time that all non-humans enter his world. One of his subordinates approaches Lo. The lion with the scythe on the unicorn says that they can't find the location of a creature similar to him. If Andras, the replacements, and other demons are involved. The red cow lands from above, also addressing Lo. The boy reports that all of Andras's magic has dissipated from the Aldewan estate. Lo praises his subordinate's work. A creature with pointed ears and a small horn appears behind the creatures. It makes an aggressive sound, but is pinned to the ground with a foot. A succubus lands on him. She says that she has cleared the city of evil spirits and that it should be calmer. Lo smiles. Red Cow approaches Brandel. Red Cow asks Lo to allow him to continue his observation, as he can move freely between worlds. The wizard asks if he is sure. Red Cow answers positively. Lo allows Red Cow to help him. A succubus and a lion-headed creature also volunteer to help. Lo asks them to be careful and to report back periodically. Lo adds that nothing is more important than their lives. The creatures accept Brandel's order. In the morning, the fair-haired guy calls his brother to show off his breathing control results. Brother Lo praises the boy George. He adds that he managed to increase the amount of mana. Lo allows George to sit down. The boy sits down and says that the teacher praised him. Lo replies that he still has room to grow, and he can't stop training. George wants to tell something else, but asks the dark-haired man not to laugh. Embarrassed, the boy admits that he wants to become a magic appraiser. The fair-haired man reasons that this profession is valued now. However, he has no talent. He clutches his head and asks if he really can't do it. Lo interrupts his train of thought. Brandel says George will make a great appraiser. Hope appears in the boy's eyes. The boy asks the teacher again. The teacher repeats that George has room to grow. He asks him to be confident in himself, and Lo will help him. Brandel suggests starting with the basics of magic tomorrow. George rushes to hug Lo with tears in his eyes. Lo asks him not to cry and invites him to breakfast. George runs out of the house, thinking that he should go for a jog to strengthen his body and stop at the library to get a book on the magic of evaluation. He realizes that he left early and has plenty of time. He can read a little about the park. He thinks that books have become more interesting to read after his brother's teaching. George feels that he is being watched. Anna sits on the bench opposite the guy. She looks away when George looks at her. He reads again, noticing from the shape that the girl is from a magical academy for girls. He feels as if he is being devoured by a gaze. When George looks up indignantly, the girl looks away again, ashamed. Deciding to start a conversation, the blonde asks if they have met before. Anna says that the pickup is denied. George is about to leave. Seeing this, Anna stops him. The girl offers to talk. Anna learns that George is the headmistress's younger brother. He explains that his mother and sister are magical geniuses. He also adds that he is often compared to them to his disadvantage. They continue their conversation. The boy admits that he used to skip school a lot because of these comparisons. The girl says that she also wanted to skip today's classes because she can't do summoning magic. The blonde guy says that he also failed to do this magic recently. However, he says that one person told him to keep trying and eventually his mana would increase. The guy promised himself not to give up so easily. George tells Anna that skipping classes is not worth it. At his academy, parents are called in for skipping classes. He used to get spanked 100 times for every time he was slapped. Anna laughs and calls the guy, "Poor Georgie." George gets up and is about to go to the academy. Anna stops him. She asks if they can meet at the same place after classes. The guy agrees and sets a time. With a mischievous smile, the blonde wishes the girl good luck in her recruitment lessons. She smiles back at him, and he walks away confused. At the academy, the teacher asks those who failed to summon last time to do the practice. It's Anna's turn. She remembers George's smile and mentally promises herself to never give up either. Anna reads the summoning spell. A spotted cat appears in front of her. The girl is happy that she managed to summon the heavenly servant. She squats down next to the animal. The teacher reminds them to find out the gender and give him a name. Ko turns out to be a boy. Anna notices how cute the cat is. She names him George. Lou and Francisca stand in confusion. Anna asks the cat to be gentle with her. She picks him up. Brandel praises the student and says that tricolor males are very rare. The girl's condition becomes sluggish. She begins to fall. The teacher's look changes to a worried one. The brunette catches her. The cat jumps out of Anna's hands. Anna's friend and teacher excitedly call out for her. She gradually loses consciousness. The girl wakes up in bed. She doesn't understand where she is. She sits up in bed. Teacher Lo comes up to her. Anna concludes that she has run out of mana. Lo confirms this and adds that she is not yet accustomed to summoning magic. He smiles and tells the student to rest and go to class in the afternoon. The girl thinks that no one came to her, not even her friend Louise. She tells the teacher that he can come back and that he shouldn't waste his time on her. Noticing that Anna is upset, Lo points out that she completed the task with flying colors. However, there are many who couldn't complete it, and he convinces them to continue training. He continues to say that everyone was very worried about Anna. Tears appear in her eyes. Brandel adds that Louise, in tears, asked Anna to wake up. He suggests returning to classes after lunch with a smile on her face. Brandel tells Anna not to envy people. He explains that it is important to have a competitive spirit, but you need to remain yourself, regardless of others. Anna remembers that she was always jealous of Louise, and she was worried about her. Anna remembers the heavenly servant and asks the teacher about him. Lo replies that she managed to make a contract with him, and now he is hers. The cat returned to his world, but will return when called. Brandel notes that he has not seen Anna as bright and strong as she was this morning. He asks if anything good has happened to her. She immediately remembers George and becomes very embarrassed. Anna says it's her secret and shakes her head in embarrassment. Lo watches this with a smile. Lo leaves the infirmary. In the corridor, he is met by a succubus. She reports that the red cow was able to find Andras's trail. The teacher immediately tenses up. The long-haired girl looks out the window. She calls the maid and asks where Lo went. She says worriedly that he has not been seen since classes. He asks them all to gather, but he himself is not there. Maid Morale says that she cannot answer, but asks not to leave the estate that night. The maid says that they are guarded outside by a Cerberus dog, and inside by her, as Lo asked. The girl asks if something dangerous is happening and if Moral is worried. Moral replies that she is worried, but believes Mr. Lo. She asks Francisca to believe in him too. Fran clutches her nightgown. She looks out the window and silently tells Lo that she hopes and waits for him. Brandel looks up at the sky. Lo stands in front of the store the Riedel showed him. The place wasn't there yesterday. Lo deduces that the demons are hiding under powerful magic. He thinks it would be easy to strike now, but he doesn't want to involve the surroundings in the fight. Lo begins to cast a spell that will take him to another world. The store appears in a white space. Vine and Red Cow find themselves next to Lo. Vine says that the entire store needs to be moved. Brandel addresses the demons in the store, giving them a choice: surrender or fight. The door is knocked down. Lo is stunned. The man in the black robe asks how Lo dares to talk about surrender. He adds that human souls are arrogant. Brandel says he underestimates people. The man says that even being an apostle of Lucifer, Lo is still a man. He takes off his robe and a man with an owl's head appears in front of Lo. A man with a bow in an archer's costume stands next to him. The owl man says that he will not give in without a fight, just like Vina. Vine says that Andras and Barbatos were once his brothers and served Lucifer. He adds that they have turned away from the true path. Andras asks if he can kill a man. Barbatos allows him to do so. Brandel reminds that all mortals have died in agony from the demon's sword. He adds that such a sword is just right for Andras. The demon attacks the wizard with the sword, threatening to kill. Lo dodges the sword by doing a somersault. The demon says that he can't dodge the sword in the air. The demon runs the sword across Lo's body from shoulder to hip. The wizard coughs up blood. Andras says that people dare not look in his direction. Lo sits on the demon's sword and asks why he stopped. The wizard is unharmed. Andras realizes that Brandel's murder was an illusion. He attacks Lo again. A fight ensues. Red Cow wants to do something to help Mr. Lo. The archer shoots the red cow, and it falls. Barbatos wants to know the strength of a man, and the red cow will prevent him from doing so. He tells the creature that if he is looking for a rival, the archer is here. Path to the Riedel is blocked by Vine, who asks defiantly if he is worthy of Barbatos' attention. Vine points his weapon at the archer, causing him to freeze. Andras throws random punches, trying to hit Lo. Brandel dodges them. The demon is amazed that Lo is still alive. The wizard only smiles. Andras attacks again. Lo dodges another sword strike, rising into the air. He begins to scold the demon for losing Lucifer's favor and looking down on humans. Spirits do not like such demons. Brandel threatens Andras to feel it on his own skin. He calls upon the 4 great spirits. 3 different girls and a dragon appear. Andras realizes that this is the wrath of the heavens. A powerful stream of magic is aimed at him, against which he cannot resist. He sees a dragon before him. Hellish fury descends upon the demon. Then a torrential hail. All of this is directed at him by Lo. The demon's shell is destroyed. He tries to escape. However, Brandel imprisons him in a sphere. Brandel reminds him that the demon has put Jose and his father's lives at risk. He clutches the sphere in his hand, but is called out by Barbatos. The archer confesses that he was the one who incited Andras to do these things. He wanted to test whether the demon was worthy of the title of Lucifer's best apostle. Lo looks at the archer with disdain. He scolds him for allowing such a thing to happen, knowing what happened to Vine. Barbatos apologizes for his impudence. The archer regrets that he will not be able to restrain Andras's rampage. Someone turns to Lo and says that he can be read like an open book. Brandel is surprised and turns around. Lucifer appears behind him. Lucifer tells him that he has a great opportunity to explain the difference between them, Lo clarifies between him and Lucifer. Lucifer himself answers that this is how their worldviews have developed. He asks if Lo is trying to forgive Andras and Barbatos like Ween did. Lucifer says that Lo is under his influence and his cruelty has passed on to the teacher. Lucifer says that their difference is that Lo saves anyone and guides them to the true path. Brandel denies his words. Lucifer says that Brandel is kind and will continue to watch him. Lo smiles and jokes about Lucifer being a know-it-all. Lucifer replies that if he were omnipotent, he would have freed himself from the depths of the afterlife. They laugh. Lucifer asks if Lo is gloating too much at his expense. Lucifer says that both angels and demons have limits. Lo adds that humans have a mindset that allows them to break through their limits. Humans make the impossible possible. The demon agrees with the brunette, saying that he can save the entire world if he wants to. He adds that demons do not have such a quality. The demon points out that Law fought Andras mercilessly. The sphere with Andras in Lo's hand begins to glow. Lucifer says he will lend Brandel his power. Andras reappears from the sphere. Lo turns to Barbatos and Andras and says that this time he forgives their mistake, but on the condition that they serve him, otherwise how will they continue to exist? Both agree to the condition. They make a speech that means they serve Mr. Lo. The brunette smiles. Fran runs out to him, immediately falling into his arms. A few days later, the 4 students arrive at the new estate. They admire the estate. One of them says that they should settle in before the dinner party. Nadia wonders if they can handle such a large estate. She adds that it would be nice to have an extra pair of hands. Lo introduces the girl to his new servants, who will help them with the move. The new servants are the demons Andras, Barbatos, and Vine in human form. They introduce themselves by other names, Andre, Barvan, and Viernan. The girls surrounded the servants, discussing them in a positive manner. Francisca whispers to Lo if his new servants are human. The question makes the boy tense up and says that he can't hide anything from her. The girl is indignant and asks if everything will be okay. Loe answers positively and adds that they are now his good comrades. Brandel offers to take care of the girl's move. The servants actively help them. Dumel's estate has arrived. Ermin starts a conversation with Ernest and Gerard. A blonde guy wants to compliment Nina on her appearance. The girl smiles, thanks him and compliments him back. The guy is embarrassed. The other 2 girls are discussing wine. All guests will check out at dinner. Lou goes out onto the balcony. Francisca follows him out and asks if he is tired. Brandel replies that he just needs some fresh air. Lo remembers their first meeting. He wonders what would have happened if the girl hadn't asked him to become a teacher. What would have happened if he hadn't shown up? Lo says that thanks to her, he met a lot of wonderful people. Brandel thanks Fran and invites her to be together. The girl starts crying and says that she should thank him. The guy puts his hand on the blonde's cheek. He says that they will always be together and he will support her. Lo leans down to Francisca's face and almost touches her lips with his own. Suddenly, Josephine appears between them. The student demands that Lo kiss her too. Nina appears and says that she was in line after Fran. The blonde continues to complain that Fran took their mutual fiancé aside. She suggests that they kiss together and knocks Lo and the others off their feet. The parents of the students come out onto the balcony. They see the girls lying on Lou and Francis. The students argue over who will kiss Lou next.